Welcome back to another episode of Young Married Christian. At Young Married Christian, we're on a mission to see a gospel-centered home made available for every single child in the foster care system. And in this episode, Debo talks to Shama.
I'm here because my dad said there was going to be pizza.
Shama's had millions of views on YouTube. He's got over 80,000 followers on Instagram.
I think I'm going to add World Changer to my Insta bio.
You probably know him from the VeggieTales remix.
Broccoli, celery, gotta be VeggieTales.
You also probably know him from a lot of other hilarious skits and videos.
I want you.
This was a phenomenal episode.
If we got a show for you.
Yeah, we went through a lot, all the way from interracial relationships,
Hashtag codependency.
MLMs with the Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, multi-level marketing, all the way to woke culture. I mean, you name it, we talked about it.
This is an emotional roller coaster, man. This is better than Jack Reacher.
So one of the things that they talked about that I thought was really fascinating was this thing that Shama calls the game, which is really a mechanism to create really compelling comedic stories.
Their latest product, the church card.
So how to fix bullet holes with cotton candy. So grab onto your prayer beads, Barbara, because we are young, married, boom, boom, chick, boom, boom, chick, Christian.
So stupid.
What do you think of the shirt? This is the first episode where I've ever not worn the same shirt.
Wait, didn't somebody tell me y'all were gonna wear like suit and ties? Did somebody text me that?
Wait, someone told you we were wearing suit and
so-
ties, and so you
I
wore
feel
that?
like, yeah, and I was like,
You're like, oh, they're wearing suit and ties. I
was
better
like,
wear my unbuttoned-up shirt.
This or make a swing by Target.
This calls for Target, not Walmart.
Yeah, I might have to step it up. Yeah, what like the prepackaged shirt tie, and like the plastics.
Or I mean, you could just get the T-shirt suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked you what you thought of this shirt, and you literally just stared at me. You chuckled, and you're like, "Do I have to say anything about White Castle?" Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. Are you a White Castle fan?
Huge White Castle fan. I got this on the opening day of White Castle in Orlando. I waited 5 hours in line. Dedication, man.
Okay.
Don't blame me. Blame my childhood.
I've got a lot of questions, but
Okay. So if not White Castle, when you get out of church, it's Sunday morning.
yeah.
Rolling out of church, you got your family, and your wife says, your choice. Where do you want to go? But you're in a rush. You got to go through a drive-through.
Yes.
Where are you going?
Zaxby's.
You didn't even have to think.
No, every time.
Zaxby's.
Yep,
Like,
every time.
So you're okay with cheating on Chick-fil-A?
Yeah. I actually eat more Zaxby's than I do Chick-fil-A. Don't tell the
Really?
people.
Well, I mean, you just told the people.
But Zaxby's melodically doesn't flow off the tongue for a song.
And also, as like a person in the Christian media world,
Yeah.
I feel like Zaxby's doesn't.
You
maybe Church's Chicken.
Yeah. I mean, if you sing about anything else besides Chick-fil-A, you might as well just sing about Satan.
Just true.
That's the that's the reception.
So, speaking of Satan, you had quoted Taylor Swift one time. No, I love Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Swiftie actually. But you had actually quoted her. This is a long time ago
Yes.
in one of your YouTube videos of saying that pancakes don't fix bullet holes. and ever since listening to that, I just kept
Get out of
thinking,
here.
well, what food does fix bullet holes? That's the first thing I want to know from Shama.
Yeah.
If you're there, you're the medic. How are you fixing these bullet holes if you could only use food?
Oh man, this is a cotton candy is like the first one. That kind of seems like a World War I type remedy. Just a dude just biting, kind of like pack the wound. I would just say that. Oh, I would just say pack the wound with the sugar ball.
You have seen raccoons that eat cotton candy and they dip. You know how raccoons eat food, right?
Yes.
And they dip it in water, and then they're like, "Oh, it's dissolving. What is happening to this cotton candy?" So I'm imagining them filling this wound with cotton candy, and the blood's making it dissolve, and they're like, "Oh no, more!" And it's just dissolved.
And the soundtrack playing is the whole time.
It's just like a clown car running around. Okay, sticking with the food vibes. This is my last food thing for you. You compared yourself to a yam.
Yes.
And the whole time I'm listening to this, I'm like, why is he a yam? Why is he? And then thankfully you explained at the end.
'cause
you're
I'm
brown,
on the outside and sweet,
sweet
on the
inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would I be?
Like a vanilla wafer, you know?
Oh my
is that what you have? Turn your computer around. Is that what you have?
Ding ding ding! We have a winner well, no, I asked my fiance Ashley. I said, this is one of the questions I'm asking, and I was just curious, like, what would you call me, honey? And she was like, "You're like a church wafer. You're white and you're holy." And then I started thinking of your hot wafers.
Yes. My bit. Is this gonna air? Either way, I don't think I'm gonna make it. I had an idea for a parody called Hot Communion. It's like hot wings, but it's hot questions and even hotter wafers. I pitched it to some friends and I was like, "Hey, is the spicy body of Christ blasphemy?" This is
Jesus Christ, that's spicy.
This is gonna be one of those bits that the pitch is gonna be funnier than the video. Like the video is gonna fall flat, but me telling people about it like this, hilarious.
That wafer is hot as hell, but it tastes heavenly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that you can do with that.
It's just me and a guest, and I'm just putting like, all right, now we're gonna move on to the Nazarene sauce, and we're gonna move on to the epistle to Corinthians, which is just full of Paul-like intensity.
Oh my goodness, that's gonna be good. I feel like a lot of your skits, like I watch them on Instagram, I'm crying laughing. I'm laughing out loud. I'm in public. People are staring at me. Two of the funniest things I think you've ever done, church aerobics and church hop, which both have a similar vibe. So apparently I like jazzercise exercise comedy. I didn't realize that was my thing.
Yeah.
But it also made me think, is having a healthy lifestyle like a high priority for you?
Theoretically, like on paper I do. Like I asked for LaCroix today. That's not what I want, but I know this was good for me. I'm a big Mountain Dew fan. When I started college, left my parents' house, I drank like maybe 6 to 8 Mountain Dews a day straight from the can. It's a miracle that any of my innards still work. I've never called them my innards until today. But yeah, I want to get healthy. Healthier.
So, I mean, are you exercising at all? Are you doing anything physical, or is it literally just filming those two things was your exercise for life?
So you want to know what's funny is no, I used to go to a gym pre C word.
Pre C word.
Yeah.
Before you went to church?
before church, yeah. This was back when I was just a heathen. I would just work out all the time. So it's funny is we wrote church aerobics. Me and my friend PD, we wrote it, and we wrote all these different dances. And then we got to set that day. We're like, all right, I'm gonna wear jeans, and you're gonna wear that, and then we're gonna wear these jackets. And then of course for sound, we were like, all right, let's kill the AC. And then we had to start doing like the moves, and I remember like sweating. I'm like dying, and then the director would be like, hey, like, all right, let's do that again. I'm like, no, this is actually like work. I'm sorry. When we wrote it, we thought it would just be funny, but now we actually have to work out in front of a camera for like the 5 of you behind the camera, and we are dying over here. So it's one of those like theoretically we're like, heck yeah, let's do it. That's gonna be hilarious. And then practically we're like, all right, are we done? And we just collapsed.
I mean, I honestly think that you could make a whole career out of just doing funny exercise videos because I could get my exercise in, I could get my laugh in. Laughing and exercising, I'd have a 6-pack.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's like double the time.
And your spirit, man, too. That's the most important part.
What
your spiritual your soul. It also feeds your soul too, because we're also in kind of tucking in little Bible verses and little puns here and there.
That's true
for your spirit.
So you're feeding it all.
Yep.
Now you talked about PD, but what about the star of the show, which was Chris?
Chris Freeland, shout out to Chris. I've known him for a long time. So obviously when we're crafting stuff, you're crafting the characters, and then for that one we're like, all right, PD. So Shama is like the expert, PD is like the new guy, and then if you've ever watched like Tybo videos, all those videos, we're like, all right, we need somebody in the back who's they just don't get it, because they're gonna be people who watch it who also don't get it. So that was we gave Chris that opportunity, and he loved it. And I'm sure he did because he didn't have to do too much, but it was also hilarious. So we'd be like, hey, now it's time for John the Baptist. And I'd have like baptize PD over and over. And then Chris would just like, with his hands on his chest, pretend to baptize himself.
And the best is the resurrection, where you're like, if you're new, wait 3 days before doing this exercise.
So it's just sit-ups.
So he's just laying there. And I was like, that is comedy gold.
Oh, man.
And now I see Chris popping up. So PD and Chris popping up in a lot of your videos. Also, you have like, you know, a couple other people that are regulars. You have this crew, and it almost has this Adam Sandler grown-ups kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, not only is he getting to hang out with all of his friends, but he's also like getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
You know, how did your squad form?
So unintentionally. So I met PD, my friend Tony, who's behind the camera on a lot of videos and in a few. We met at a church that I used to go to. We all went to. I volunteered in the youth ministry, and they were in the youth ministry. So they were like 10 or 11 when I met them. And I remember just thinking, oh, they're homeschooled. I was homeschooled. Now I'm in Bible college, and I work at this church, and we just kind of hit it off. And so from then I started making YouTube videos, and then gradually I would ask some people to be in the videos, and then, hey, hold a camera, or hey, do this. And nope, I was a good actor. They weren't good behind the camera. None of us knew what we were doing. The writing wasn't that good either, but we had a ton of fun. So as time kind of went on, I worked for a production company in Greenville, and I learned the ins and outs of production and writing and producing and editing and how to do this well. And so finally I couldn't think of anybody else to call except for the people who I kind of knew. Like, so I'd call Tony and be like, hey, you know, come help me out behind the camera, and can you pick up Chick-fil-A and Starbucks on the way, and can you do this, and can you do that? And then PD and I, we did stand-up comedy together. So then we were like, oh, let's write something together. Let's write a sketch about this, and somebody would have an idea, and we'd kind of build off of that. And so we'd the sketches, we'd write bigger sketches, and the music videos got bigger, and then we would just kind of see friends of friends like, hey, do you know anybody who could play this role? And we did a sketch called Breakup Press Conference, which is about a Christian, like almost like a high school couple that they break up, and they call all their friends and family into a press conference, and they have to tell them, and then the people in the audience ask questions. And so we met a lot of people from that. We were like, hey, we need a girl to play opposite of PD, like PD's ex-girlfriend in this sketch. And then somebody's like, hey, you should call Abby. And we're like, great, Abby. And so she came, and because we've been doing sketches and good quality content for a while, people kind of bring their A game when they come to stuff for us. And it's exciting, and people now ask, like, people be like, please put me in something. And we're like, that's really not how it goes. Like, you know, we're all just trying to fit, we're trying to fit roles. And also, when you ask me to put you in something, I'm busy trying to put me in something. Do you understand? I'm married and I've got 2 kids. Every time I can put me in something, that's a win. So I'm not at home, you know, pacing the floor like, man, how can I put my friend in no, like we're trying to figure it out. And if somebody fits, you know, it's like a puzzle. If somebody fits in the puzzle piece, you know, if somebody's a great puzzle piece, then we're like, we have to have that person. And, you know, we'll wait and move dates around to have them.
Yeah, and I love it too because it's such a rare thing to see, because typically I feel like you get into the whatever world you're trying to do, music, comedy, you know, TV, film, whatever, and then you start meeting other people that are also in that industry, and then you become friends. You know, you start seeing the collabs like Andy Manio and Lecrae like coming together, and, you know, like the 116 click. But like for you guys, you literally were like, no, we're starting together. And we're going into like stardom, you know, as a squad. Yeah. But do you think that there will ever become a time where you're like, okay, Shama is blowing up, the rest of the crew not so much, and then you have this decision of, do I leave them or do I take them with us, like, you know, how Sandler did?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I can't imagine going forward without bringing people that I've worked with on. And literally, I've been on phone calls. You know, I've taken some calls, and people are like, "Hey, we want to do this, and this," and I'm like, "Okay, great." I want PD. I have my friend who's directed everything I've done, Robert. Like, I want him on board too. And a couple scenarios that has not happened, but I make sure to bring up their names each and every time, because ultimately, you know, production is this, you know, it's a team. It is fun. There are long days, you know, so I couldn't imagine spending those long days with people that I don't know, and people who I haven't worked with already, because, it is like this element of like, it's like camp, right? It's like you go to camp, you meet some people, the first day, and you're like, oh, we got to go to lunch, and where were you at breakfast? And then, hey, look, we're going to the pool. Hey, we're going hiking or something. And so, that's what film production has been, and I really enjoy just working with everybody. Like what we make is, that's almost like an afterthought. More than anything, I tell people, hey, come, we're working on something. We want you to be in it or behind the camera on it. But yeah, we're going to have a blast. And during that time, we're also just going to happen to put some stuff on some cards and cameras. And I'm going to edit all that stuff together. But in the meantime, we're going to eat, we're going to hang out, we're going to laugh, we're going to cut up, and then we're going to work like a very small portion of that.
Yeah, and you guys are putting out phenomenal content, and it almost seems like it's coming out daily. I know that you said at dinner the other night that it is weekly, yeah. But we're like, man, Shama's like, it's just like every single day we feel like we're getting new stuff, and it's constantly quality. It's not just quantity. You're putting out good stuff. So what's the process that you guys use to keep it quality?
Yeah. So we observe. I'll say we observe a lot. We text each other a lot. So it's just that, just the comedy, the bit, joke writing, meme creating brain never turns off. So if I'm at a church, if I'm visiting a church out of town with my family or something, I can't stop thinking that. My father-in-law, shout out to Mark Todd, he worked in ministry for a long time, but he also worked as like a firefighter and a magician and sold insurance, and then also got his doctorate in theology. So hearing stories about him in ministry in churches that he's worked for in the Midwest and in South Carolina as well, all that stuff is just really like, wow. And then tell me about this character. And my father-in-law actually gave me an idea for a character where it's he said he had a pastor who he worked at a church, and the pastor went on like a 15-minute tangent about but God, and don't ignore the buts. And I remember he was telling me about that. He told me that story, multiple times in the course of like 2 years after, I was dating Grace, my wife, his daughter. And finally I was like, hey, I think, can I make a video out of that? And he was like, yeah. And it's done really well. And people, I think are crazy, but people are like, man, you talking about but God, man, I've seen that before. That's awesome. So it's finding that, I can call it like the string of relatability on like a fabric, on like a shirt, and then you pull it, and all of a sudden like everything starts to like unravel, and you're like, oh, there it is, But a lot of times, with all the content that we put out, we're just tugging different strings, and then sometimes we completely destroy the shirt, which in this analogy is what we want. Yeah. I don't know why, but yeah.
And you called it the other night the game.
Yeah, the game.
Like you guys have this thing called the game.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever heard that. I've never done improv classes. Can you tell us about and like elaborate on what is the game? Like give us the if I'm taking the 101 class,
yeah,
like for an idiot, dumb it down for us. What is the game?
So the game, that is an improv term. I took improv in Greenville, South Carolina, with a company called Alchemy Improv, and I learned so much from there. But the game is essentially like what the scene is about. So improv, if you watch, if you've been to a local improv show in your town, if you haven't, I strongly recommend going. But the game is the scene, right? You see it even in movies. We're talking about Adam Sandler movies. So the scene is a guy and a girl who used to date 30 years ago at dinner, right? So you have the setting, right? Applebee's or whatever. And then you have the relationship, which is, they're old exes. So then the game is like, okay, what needs to happen? What needs to happen in the scene? So if you're thinking in terms of sketch or improv, or even in a movie sometimes, you're like, okay, the game is what propels this scene forward, right? So they can't just be, something needs to happen. So now, is the waiter terrible, or does the guy have a ring in his back pocket because he wanted to propose even though they haven't seen each other? So then that is what, once you kind of give that, you let the audience in on that. So then you kind of take that whole thing forward. So then you're like, okay, now is he going to propose? Something needs to happen at the end of the scene, and that's what makes for a great sketch. And I've always heard people say, anybody can start a sketch, but it's really hard to end one. So yeah, you only have in that time, you've got to find the game and then you've got to elevate it. And so a good sketch is elevated, right? So it goes from, Key and Peele, all these other sketch shows, they do it really well. So it starts off with something, elementary, like, hey, you and I are doing a podcast. And then I just start getting quieter, and you're like, hey, could you just speak? And then finally I'm just muted completely. And then maybe I just start shrinking, So then all of a sudden, the game there is that, you are interviewing somebody who essentially just starts disappearing, and you start doing a podcast, or, that's too much. They call that taking it to space, which they say in sketches, never take something to space, because that's too much, too heightened, right? Is when you find the game, you go, okay, the next level. So we wrote a song called, PD and I wrote a song called the Worship Song. Also co-written on it. Mason Bain, my producer, Andrew Simmons, Robert Thrill also co-wrote on it too. But the game was like, okay, this is a fake song, a fake Christian band called Random Action Verb Worship. They're making a fake Christian song. And so once we found out, like, okay, this is the arena, right? What is the game? Now the game is that, they're hip, they're all cool, they're young, they're good looking, and they're playing the song that sounds like a worship song. And then, as it progresses, the bridge, like, I think the punchline is the bridge is they should just start singing Jesus. Like I go, like, this song's about Jesus. This song's about Jesus. We forgot to mention Jesus. So that is like the thing of like, hey, worship songs in general, it is like this vague, are they singing about Jesus or an ex? This song straight up does not sing about Jesus. And then towards the end, they're like, hey, actually, guess what? This song is about Jesus the whole time. And so that is like, that is like the game, I would say, in comedy. And when done well, man, it is like, it's like somebody jumping off a building and just taking off, right? When done poorly, you're watching somebody just like fall flat. But when done well, you're like, what? How did that? And then the character, and then the waiter, and then the thing, and then the guy's boss, and then the guy in the mowing the lawn in the background like tripped and fell. That's all part of the game. Like this universe that they're setting up is like, hey, that's the game.
What was the video for you that you feel like launched your career? Like when, because I know that the worship song is one of your newer bits, but what was the thing for you that you were like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it?
So I did a song called Chick-fil-A, but it's Sunday. And that did really well. I hit like 1 million views over a week on Facebook, and then it did really well on YouTube, and I got a couple of interviews, like local interviews, which I just thought was absurd. I was like, man, how boring is our city that they're like, hey, get that dude who made the song about Chick-fil-A, who like sang outside of a Chick-fil-A, let's get him on. And they'd buy me Chick-fil-A and they'd film me eating Chick-fil-A, and so everybody thought like, maybe you got lucky with that one. And I was like, that was like the understanding, like, everybody goes viral once, it's like hitting the lottery. And so in my mind, I was happy with it, and I thought it turned out great, but I thought, I want to win the lottery twice, just in terms of like having something else that hits. And I was working with my buddy, Brian French, who's the director of photography on a majority of our projects. And he said, oh, have we got a show for you? And I remember thinking, like, Brian, that's genius. That's like a rappy, like a cool VeggieTales intro. And I'm like, hey, Brian, I'm gonna come back to you. And so the next day I had a studio session with Andrew Simmons, my producer, who also made the Chick-fil-A song, and he makes all the songs that I do. And so I went and met with Andrew, and I went, Andrew, I want to create first of all, I went home and I copied the lyrics from VeggieTales onto an Apple Note, and then I added some more stuff, just foolishly. This is like I just playing around, I was like, growing Sunday school, best show, vegetables. So I'm writing all this stuff. Then I go to Andrew and I go, hey, I want to remix the VeggieTales theme song. And he's like, okay. And so he downloads the original theme song, takes the tuba, tweaks it or whatever, and he's like, blah, like blasting it back and forth. I'm jumping up and down. I'm losing my mind. We build the instrumental, I rap over it a couple times, and then we didn't record the vocals. Came back another time, and we put it up online. 1 million views in the first day. It's blowing up. It's in articles everywhere. Rappers, people who I know and love and follow, have followed and listened to for years, are posting about it. Phil Vischer, the creator of VeggieTales, like retweets it. It goes crazy. And so that, but the thing was, from the time we recorded the song in January, and it literally sat on like a Dropbox on my phone from January until August, because we couldn't figure out the video. So I would just play it for friends, in the car. They'd be like, hey, I got to play you this song that I'm working on. And they're like, really? You got to put that out. And I'd be like, yeah, I got to work on a music video. And the reason why the music video took so long is my director, who wrote a treatment, and kind of planned it out, was like, hey, we got to build sets. We got to build sets to match like original VeggieTales song. And I remember thinking like, this is absurd. Let's green screen it. Let's green screen it, dude. And that's what took, January, February. And I'm just playing it for people, just send a link to people. And then finally, come June or something, we finally get it together. We put a date on the board, and we're like, hey, I'm gonna buy props. We're gonna build sets. We're gonna buy couches. We're gonna do this. Yeah, and then we turned to the studio, the production space that I worked out of, that I was hired at, and we turned it into a VeggieTales set, four VeggieTales sets back to back on a Saturday.
And so for half a year, you're just sitting on this gold mine.
Oh, yeah.
You know that this is going to be, the second coming of Christ. This is going
Yeah.
to be your.
Say that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like your Chick-fil-A rap hit. Which, by the way, was that before or after Jaron Myers?
That was after, but he had released his, but ours was already done too. So ours had been done for a couple of weeks, and then he had dropped his, and I was like, oh dang, but great minds think alike. So
Well, I mean, regardless of who did it first,
Yeah.
who did it better?
yeah,
Because
Jaron set a car on fire.
because I know when I ask Alexa to play,
Yeah, it plays mine.
it plays
Yeah,
yours.
yeah.
So Alexa knows best. No, I'm just kidding. I love them both. So I have a confession to make, though.
Please.
I have never watched VeggieTales.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay, 29.
Okay, so I was not raised. I wasn't homeschooled.
Okay.
There, we said it. Okay, no, no.
I thought this was a homeschool podcast.
No,
I didn't know.
no.
I gotta leave.
It's all good. I think it's just because I wasn't really raised in the church.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where I missed it. But help me explain, or help me to understand, like the hype behind VeggieTales.
So
What am I missing?
VeggieTales was a this was back in the analog age with VHSs. VeggieTales essentially went viral via VHS. Like Phil Vischer put out. I read a book. He's got a great book called Me, Myself, and Bob that talks about the rise and kind of like what ended up happening to the VeggieTales brand. But he made these videos about vegetables, talking about the Bible and values and biblical values and all these other things. And it just took the world by storm via VHS. Like you'd go, oh, you've got to see this, and we'd loan each other VHSs, and then you go to church and you'd watch one, then another one would come out. And I remember being at Lifeway Christian bookstores, and they'd have like a big arc thing in like the middle, and they would have a TV in it, and we'd watch VeggieTales in like a TV in like this arc in the middle of the store while my parents bought, I don't know, like communion cups or something. So it was one of those things like like if you were a Christian kid in like 90, I don't know, 8 to like 2000 and something, you watched VeggieTales a lot. You watched VeggieTales, you watched McGee and Me, which was that's the original what is it called? What is that one show with Hillary Duff?
Lizzie
McGuire. So it's like it's a guy version of Lizzie McGuire, but Christian. But he's also got like a little cartoon version. So there are a few things, Adventures in Odyssey, that we all kind of grew up on. But VeggieTales was one of those things that, like, they had little silly songs, they had little funny sketches and little characters and a bunch of other stuff that we all just kind of knew, right? Like the cheeseburger song, the hairbrush song. There are these little jingles that you just would watch over and over, and we all just memorized. So it was pretty cool that, for those of us who were saved growing up and grew up in great households and parents who loved us, they would not just kidding.
Wow,
No.
I hear what you're saying. So you're trading VHSs of VeggieTales with your friends, and I'm just trading Pokemon cards. Is all I'm hearing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Pokemon, the devil, just all these little devils.
and yet, by the grace of God, I am here.
Here we
It's
are.
amazing. Now, outside of, your VeggieTales rap, your Chick-fil-A rap, you do songs, you do sketches, you do it all. I mean, you're kind of
Trying.
like, you're amazing at everything you do. Like, what is the ultimate dream for Shama? 5 years from now, where do you see?
I call myself I like to tell people that I'm like Donald Glover if he was homeschooled. Donald Glover, Childish Gambino. He started off. He makes music. He does sketches. He wrote for 30 Rock. He was in 30 Rock. He has a TV show now and does movies as well. Man, what is the goal? Is just to keep on creating with my friends. That's the goal. hopefully make a living out of it. That's always been the goal, and I think that's going to remain the goal, and that's caused myself and my wife to make some radical some radical choices. Like, we've put off certain things just because my wife is super supportive, and she's like, hey, like, like, what do you want to do? What do we want to do as a family? And I'm like, well, we can rent, or we can buy a house, but if we buy a house, it's just going to kind of like, we'd have to work a little harder and maintain and do a bunch of other things, or like, let me pursue this dream a little more. Let's pursue this dream a little more of creating and comedy, and my wife has been super supportive, and my friends have too. I think we've made a couple of coins from some videos, and I've just told people, like, hey guys, like, I'd love to take some of this money and give it to you, but what if we just put it back into what we make and make things better, and not have to pay out of pocket for stuff. And that's a model that I heard from a sketch group a long time ago, and everybody's just been super supportive, and that's the goal, man. The goal is to just keep on making stuff. We find just great joy in creating together, and I think the numbers are like a byproduct from that. Like, I'm not even trying to sound like flippant, but we forget, like, we don't really care anymore. Like, we really do enjoy making stuff together, and it just happens that it just so happens that it's received really well online, and it's like shared to all these different places, and where people will send us a thing, and then people I know will, like, people will send my mother-in-law one of my videos, and my mother-in-law is like, yeah, I know, that's my son-in-law, so stuff like that, where it's kind of come full circle, where people outside of our our friend group are now sharing our stuff, and pastors and rappers and musicians and artists have kept up with me and what we've been doing in tiny Greenville, South Carolina. That's awesome. And if we can make more, if we can make TV and movies about that, when the time comes, those doors will open up, and we're looking forward to it. We're not in a rush. I tell jokingly, I've told my wife, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'll people keep on talking to me about the R word, retirement. You got to save up, and I'm like, you don't freaking know. I love this. I'm in it for the game. I'm in it for the love of the game. I'll die poor. Do you understand? I'll make Christian comedy to the death of me. That's the wrong approach. I've got 2 kids. They need a place to live, and they need to go to college. But in my mind, I'm still like an 18-year-old who's fighting. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I don't need anything else. I'll wear the same shirt.
Yeah, because like it's no longer like Shama is putting out videos for his family and they're all liking it and supporting it. Like, it is bigger than you.
Right.
You've got tens of hundreds of thousands of people, millions even, who are reacting, watching, commenting, all of this. But it seems like you are just as cool as a cucumber, to reference VeggieTales. But I think I got that right. I don't know. Is that Larry? Is that Larry?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. I'm just hey, as I guess I'm like the gatekeeper for all things VeggieTales. I'm gonna allow it. You were on point with that reference, and I'll allow it.
Thank you. But like, how do you stay so calm and collective? Like, your attitude and your demeanor about this whole, like, who really cares if we're making money? And you're talking about, like, oh guys, instead of getting paid for doing this, let's just put it all back in. Like, is everybody working second jobs?
Yeah, everybody still works their day job, and I do too. I make corporate videos for a living, so I produce, direct, and edit corporate videos, and I have a ton of fun. I work behind the camera on a lot of projects, and I'm not, they don't know, like the clients don't know. I'll fly all across the U.S. and make stuff, and they don't know that, they don't know that I'm funny. They don't know that I'm also I do that to support my comedy habit. And we called the team, it's called After School Program, which was dubbed by my old boss because everything that we do is like after school, that it's like after our work and our lives and families and whatever. So we get together in like this cool club, and we're like, okay, is everybody, is everybody off, this Friday afternoon? Great, we're going to make a sketch. But yeah, the time that it's taken us to make certain things like VeggieTales, like I said, like it sat on a Dropbox folder for almost 6 or 7 months. That stuff is really, really encouraging to us, because it just means like, hey, like, we can put stuff out, but if it's the right thing, it doesn't matter when it goes out, right? It doesn't matter when it goes out. It doesn't matter when we make it, as long as we have a great idea and we can execute it. And we know how to execute it really well. So yeah, that's it. I think I did YouTube. I was a solo YouTuber way back when, and I wasn't good. And I wrote and I directed and I edited and I did wigs and all this other kind of crazy stuff. And I enjoyed it at the time. And I quit to do ministry. Like I remember thinking, like, I don't want to make YouTube videos anymore. I wanted to be a youth pastor. So I remember thinking I was done. Like, I don't want to I can't do it. It's a lot of work, and I was kind of done. I truly, really was done. And so I didn't cut it in ministry. Like the church that I worked at, we had the pastor and I, we just kept on butting heads, and I was voluntarily let go. And so kind of leaving, I kind of quit videos and acting to work at a church. And then when that didn't work out, I thought, well, and then I got a job at a production company, and I thought, well, maybe I do like making videos. And I spent like a year just learning at the production company. I didn't ask for a camera. I would hold a camera and point it at things and shoot and all these things. But I was like, no, I just want to learn. And so, yeah, like this is almost like a second wind for me. Like the past 2017 till today, creating with Tony and Robert and Andrew and PD and Abby and Chase and the whole team back in Greenville. This is almost like a second life, because I've done this before. I wasn't good at it and I quit, and now I'm back again. So the success that I've found now, it's like, wow, like this is awesome. But it's also like, I'm not alone. Like, so yeah, that's just where I'm at for it. So I'm like, if something does take off, that's great. But if something doesn't, like, the time that we've spent, the fun that we've had, that's real. And we know that what we put out is going to be super cool too. And somebody is going to see it down the road. Like you here in Florida have watched Church Hop and a bunch of other stuff, and people everywhere. Like I've been at conferences and churches, and I'm like, hey, does anybody remember that VeggieTales remix video? And people just explode. I'm like, I'm that guy. And they're like, I didn't even know. You don't look like him, but I'm the same guy. So yeah, like it is super cool. Like it is an immense blessing to be able to create, and then also to create things that people just love to see and are watching consistently.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important to bring humor into the world of Christianity, because I feel like a lot of times it is very serious. There's a lot of like, okay, we've got to teach a lesson here.
Yeah.
Or, you got to like walk these like certain lines, and then here you are over here doing battle rapping for the Lord, which like I'm watching this and I'm like, what is happening? Like, I have to know, like, where did you get your inspiration from that video in particular? Because in my head, I went back to something. I just want to know if we were on the same wavelength.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about Super Hot Fire? There's like an old YouTube video with this guy who did like a battle rapping sketch in like a parking lot or something.
You're in a parking lot. Yeah. It's you and PD, and you've got your squads on each side. Yeah. What was the inspiration there?
Man, the inspiration is that's kind of a thing already. Like we sometimes we'll make up something. It's all just parodies of a lot of things, but in like a Christian context. But I really don't know. Like on the drive here, I was driving Tony and I, and while I'm driving, I'm just dying. I just start busting out laughing. I'm like, this is so freaking funny. And Tony was like, what is it? And I'm like, I just had a really funny idea. And I'll tell you, I don't know when this is gonna go up, but I thought, I'm gonna make a video. It's gonna be called a Christian artist in album mode, and it's just gonna be me pacing around a studio, singing different kinds of whoa, playing the guitar and playing. I think it's just gonna be. Listen, theoretically, it doesn't sound too good, but I think practically when I make it, it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, there are just these little nuggets of ideas that I will have, or somebody else will have, or PD will send to me, and we'll be like, okay, there's something there, all right, and all right, what is the game? Like, how do we, where does that go? Is it a meme? Is it a sketch? Is it a song? Is it a 30-second sketch? Is it three minutes? Is this a movie? No, every time we're like, no, it's not a movie. I don't want to watch an hour and a half of that, but it is finding like, okay, what container does that particular idea fit in? And for battle rapping for the Lord, we're like, hey, yeah, like what if we just hype up really cheesy, corny Christian burns back at each other, and then we just play it up like boom.
Yeah, it took me back to the MTV show. If you watched it, I know you were raised by apparently better parents, but the MTV show called Yo Mama. Did you ever watch that?
I did not know.
Oh my goodness. Like that battle rapping scene, it was just like so similar to me back. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. So great. But yeah, I don't know if you've thought about doing TV, but I feel like everything you're putting out, like you could have your own TV show. I don't know if that's the future for Shama.
Hey, we're trying, man. We really are.
Yeah?
Obviously, you're in production. It's slow. Production is slow. It's a miracle that anything gets made. I say all the time, because the channels and the people and the levels that things have to go through to be approved for the thing, and then especially at that level. So we're figuring it out. I think if and when it happens, I know it's going to be really, really good. And more than anything, I think we can all position our creativity and our minds and our hearts, for that. So when it does come, we're like, hey, we're ready. And if it doesn't happen, we're like, well, that's fine. Like, we were ready for either way.
Yeah. Now, I've noticed that in a lot of your videos, whether it be rapping or like you even did a masterly class.
I did a master class, yeah.
On clapping?
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of stepping I saw in there, which a lot of people don't know this about me. I started and choreographed a step team my high school senior year of high school.
Really?
Why,
did you
Why are you
really?
questioning that?
Listen, this is no offense, and I'm married to a white person, so I can say this. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Hey, no, I'm just kidding. But anytime I see a white person with rhythm, it's just like a unicorn.
Was music a big part in your life? Like instrumentation, listening to music? What does that look like for you guys?
You know what's crazy is this is actually a good question that I've been asking so many people that I find in the creative world. Anybody like behind a camera, in front of a like, I always, just creative people in general. I'm like, what instrument do you play? I don't even ask them, like, hey, do you play? It's what because they all played instrument, because that's like the first form of creativity a lot of us really had. So I played guitar since like the second grade, and that was. I can make music with just in my room, and this is before everybody had a computer or an iPad. So I had like a cassette, like a little handheld, a cassette player, and it had the record function. You'd press the record and the play button, and I would record little songs on cassettes. That was it. And then grabbed a hold of my dad's camcorder with the VHS or like the mini DV tapes in it, and we would just make stuff around the house. So yeah, when you're creative, man, like you're just finding different, like, hey, I'm gonna make a song. I'm gonna make a song about shoes, and it's not it's not good, but when you're 10 or 11, it's it's so you gotta rewind it. I'm rewinding it back. I'm playing it back for people, but it's so much fun. Like I think now more than ever. The fact that I can make something on my phone, I'm like, wow, did you see this? I just shot this on my phone. There's a lot less steps than recording it with the camcorder, rewinding the tape, recording it, plugging the camcorder up to a TV, rewinding, then finding the channel 3 or whatever, playing it. It's a different time.
Yeah, as a musician yourself, I'm sure you're more critical of music. Like as a drummer, I'm very critical of when I hear like drummers that are just doing like house beats. So as a musician yourself, what are your thoughts of like the Christian music world?
First of all, I'm not going to call myself a musician.
Okay.
And that's out of respect to real musicians that I know.
True. Well, I guess somebody who plays guitar, who's
Yeah.
able to rap. I mean, you got rhythm.
You
got skills.
Thanks, man. That's all Andrew Simmons, my producer. Shout out to Drew. Shout out to Drew. Man, I enjoy. Here's the thing. Like, I enjoy music, and I enjoy certain music. Obviously, in Christian music, like like you're asking. Sometimes the writing isn't, sometimes really there. But in and of itself, like, I've been listening to some, like the new Elevation Maverick City music album. I was listening to some of it on the ride here.
So good.
And, people can kind of take that album apart in a meme or something. And they're like, oh, so the freaking 12-minute songs or whatever. But I'm like, man, there's something really great there. Yeah, man, just in terms of, I really just like what I like, just in terms of music. This is so funny. I used to listen to Ariana Grande 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember thinking and I remember telling PD about it. This was back when he was like 14 in youth ministry, and he only listened to like Megadeth or, whatever. Is that a band?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. because that sounded like a boomer making up some band a 14-year-old will listen to. Mega Doom. So he listened to Megadeth, and every time he would ride in my car, I would just play pop music because I just really like pop music. You know, cut to today, PD's been to like 3 Ariana Grande concerts. He's a huge fan, and I'm like, he wears merch. He's got merch. The boy wears T-shirts. So I put on what I listen to what I like to listen to, and usually it is like the same 10 songs in my car or on the Alexas at my house consistently. So I find the 10 songs that I mentally, I don't put them in a playlist, but in my mind I go, I'm gonna play that one, and I'm gonna play that one. I might go back to that one, and I'm gonna play these other 3, and that I'm musically satisfied for the day or for the drive.
Okay, so then real quick, this is just like a rapid fire question. A top 5 Christian artists right now, they could either be doing formulaic stuff, they could be doing like crazy out of this world stuff. Put some on my radar. I love finding new music. Or it could just be you could say the same as my top 5. That's fine. Hey, but what's Shama listening to?
Man, okay, I'll say I've been listening to like I said, a lot of Maverick City Music Elevation.
Awesome.
I've been listening to I listened to Lecrae. I listened to, what else have I been listening to? Can I take my phone out and just see real quick? There's
you can leave it there. We all know now that you just listened to
Jordan
Lecrae
Feliz
and Maverick City Music.
Jordan Feliz, Holvey is recently signed to Reach Records. I listened
good
to some of him.
If you're not listening to Holvey right now, go and listen to Holvey.
It is, and that's some music that people would kind of pick apart. I listen to Indie Tribe, which is a collaboration between No Big Deal and John Keith and Mike LV and
No Big Deal just put out his new album.
Yeah, and it's doing really well. So I enjoy stuff like that. Like there are things, and I also listen. Like I like country music too. So there are things and little lines and little musical tweaks that I like enjoy. It's like a little. It's like a little nugget, right? It's like you just find a little thing. You're like, wow, what a little like, I love that. And then I'll play it for my producer. I'm like, does this fit anywhere? Can that be anywhere in one of my songs? Can we do that but different? So yeah.
Speaking of Lecrae, do you remember when Lecrae did the I Am Second video? Do you remember when those were like
I do
big?
remember. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when you did the I Am Fourth
yes,
video?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. And it was just like all these mocking testimonies or like fake testimonies. Yeah. Okay. So more serious question.
Yes.
What is your actual testimony? Like, what would be your testimony that you would share to a stranger in the airport that looks at you and is like, oh, hey, I've seen a couple of your videos. Like, tell me your story. I don't know who that guy is.
Well, first and foremost, Joe Biden. I'd love to just. Young man. That's more like a Bill Clinton. Oh, young man.
Okay, so Bill Clinton's sitting next to you in the airport. We're going to play the game here, Shama. This is, you want to play a game? So Bill Clinton's sitting next to you in the airport.
Yeah.
He's never...
Glasses and a saxophone. Go ahead.
Wait, read it already in mouth? Like he's going to give you background music?
Every testimony needs some saxophone background music.
Man, okay. So
yeah.
Stare at the camera. This is Bill Clinton right here.
Yes. Mr. Bill.
He's holding a saxophone. Tell him your testimony.
Okay, so it's kind of long. Mr. Bill, do you have time? Is Air Force One about to leave? So I was born in Tanzania, East Africa, to Jacinta and Kundale Mrema. Born in Tanzania, East Africa, moved to the States with my family, my older brother and myself. My dad moved in 92, about 8 to 9 months after I was born. And then he moved here to go to college, went to a Bible college in Alabama, did not know if he was going to be able to bring my mom, my older brother, and myself to the States. 2 years later, a church that was gracious enough and loving enough was like, hey, do you plan on bringing your family? And he was like, yeah, when I can afford it. And I'm like, we want to help you bring your family. So my mom, my older brother, and myself, we flew to the States 2 years later to be with my dad. We lived in the States. That was 94, from 94 to 2003. 2003. So during that time, my parents worked in the church. We went to a Pentecostal church in Alabama, and then that pastor moved to South Carolina. We were like, hey, we're going to follow you. So I went to a Pentecostal church. We went to a Christian school growing up, and I just did I was doing the Christian thing, right? Like, I watched VeggieTales and I watched the Christian TV and listened to Christian music. And in 2003, my parents became missionaries with an organization, and so first of all, like growing up, my parents always said, "Hey, we're gonna go back to Tanzania. We're gonna plant the church in Tanzania. That's where we're from. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back." And life in the U.S., I mean, it got kind of cozy. You know what I mean? Like we're going to school. We lived in a nice 2-story house. The house we lived in, they had like horses in the front, and the backyard. So they weren't our horses. They were the families that lived next to us. So we had a lake. We would fish. So it was super cozy, and we really enjoyed life here. And during that time, like I just grew up, Christian. Like I'm pretty sure like I got saved. I was learning to play the guitar. That's what little Christian boys do. And then I was in Royal Rangers, which is like a Christian Boy Scouts, and I'm memorizing stuff and winning patches for my shoulders and my chest shirts and all those other things. And I was going to camps, but I was just going through the motions. Like I don't think I was truly saved. We became missionaries, moved back to Tanzania, and we planted a church. And maybe around the time when we went back, I was 11. So obviously not a when you're 11 and you're figuring it out, and then also you just leave your friends and family and you're living on the other side of the world in a country that you're originally from, but you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, and everybody's coming up to you speaking Swahili and you don't understand it even though you look like them. It was a very confusing time for 11-year-old me. But during that, like I kind of fell out. Like I didn't enjoy the church. I didn't enjoy the ministry. My parents were very involved with the church. They worked overtime in the church, and I don't know. I started skipping church. I mean, I was not doing well. Like, I don't know, man. I just didn't enjoy it. I was addicted to pornography. It was not good. Like I was not good. I didn't enjoy it. But the thing was, like, my parents were pastoring this church, and I just had to play the part. So I played guitar on stage, and I'd drum on stage, and I'd swear and hang out with my friends, and I never did drugs or drank. But I remember just thinking I was close to it, and I was close to friends who did all that stuff. But I just remember thinking, like, I don't know, man. I don't believe in this whole Jesus thing. I just kind of grew up in it, and it wasn't until I moved back to college, and I went to a Bible college, for crying out loud, and I still wasn't like in it really. And I preached, and I worked for youth ministry, and I preached, and I did all these things, but I just wasn't like that really. It was just all, I had a lot of head knowledge of it, right? Like I just knew what to say, when to say it. I knew how to open up a service. I knew how to do the tithe talk on Sunday mornings, but I don't think I truly really believed. I don't think I read my Bible consistently. I don't think I cared enough. But yeah, during like after I left ministry, after I was like let go, during that time I did a lot of like soul searching. I listened to great podcasts, I listened to great sermons, I watched great sermons, I read great books, and I think that's when I really truly got saved. That's when I really truly I thought, wow, like this is real. I'm not just following my parents' religion anymore. I really need to make a change, and I really need to believe this and learn this stuff for myself. And and that was like the beginning. That was the beginning, and until today, like, I'm figuring that out. And I would say that the friends, more than anything, that's helped me is Christian friends who were my age, and still are, like, were just of huge help to my spirit and to my learning. And I'm extremely thankful for, for people who kind of saw past the, hey, you're just doing the Christian thing, like you're speaking Christianese or whatever, churchanese, and you know everything to say, like, how are you? And you're like, I'm good. And they're like, no, really, how are you? And you're like, okay, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, like, really, how are you? And then when somebody asks you that, then you're like, maybe I'm not good. Maybe I just know how to say I'm good all the time, and it keeps people at bay. So yeah, that's a longer way to say that. Yeah, did the Christian thing growing up, and then I found it for myself, or I'll say God found me, and I kind of started in the right direction.
Yeah, it's awesome, because I think that it is a God thing, because you do see a lot of, PKs, pastor kids,
Yeah.
or people that were raised in the church. It's like they either go radically this way, or there's that moment where God actually like comes into your life, and you're like, okay, this is going to be real. Like, this is going to be my faith.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to choose to make this decision instead of my parents constantly, like choosing it for me.
Right.
You brought up pornography, and I think that's something that I wasn't planning on talking about today, but it is definitely a big problem for men in our world, but even Christian men in our world. I mean, I even see like Facebook ads pop up for like, what is it, Covenant Eyes, or like those different things. So how have you been able to curb that addiction, or that like sinful nature that we have
Yeah.
in a lot of us, to go running after lust.
Covenant Eyes. I actually had a friend go, hey, what kind of apps, what stuff do you have on your phone to help you keep from not looking at stuff that you shouldn't be looking at? And I was like, well, nothing, just nothing. And he was like, hey, you should download this app. It's like, 13 or 14 bucks a month, and add me as like, your accountability partner on that. That's been like life changing, just in terms of that. But also, that conversation with my friend Zach, like, it wasn't a fun one, like, it's not a fun one for somebody to be like, hey, like, you do you have restraint put up? Do you have guards put up? And you're like, well, no, not really. It's just the whole, So, and people have been critical about, apps like that, and you need the Holy Ghost in your life, but truly, just things like that, and people really just being intentionally kind of in your face about about your walk with the Lord, and I don't know, everything that you do and see and watch when nobody else is watching.
Yeah, I hear sometimes people even say like, oh, but God's grace is bigger than my mistakes and my sin, and oh, this isn't that bad. But like for me, like, I see it as something very toxic if you're ever going to want to be in a relationship with a woman. Like I can't even imagine being with Ashley, but then also like doing this stuff on the side, whether it be looking at stuff on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Like, there's so many avenues now. Like, do you think that, like, what would you say to somebody, like a friend that was like, oh no, like, this isn't that big of a deal, like, it's fine?
Man, I was listening to a great message from Pastor Matt Chandler today, and he was just talking about how, like, little sins kind of come up. They start off as like cute little puppies, and when you get a cute puppy, and then before you know it, it's like, messing up your floors, chewing up your comforters. And yeah, man, like, there are little things that start off that you're like, wow, whatever. I don't really know. I don't really care. And then before you know it, it's really, really like ruined your life. And there have been certain, like, even just other things just in general where I've had to tell people, like, I don't know. I'll say this, like cryptocurrency. People say do whatever you want, but I remember having like a long conversation with a friend recently where I was like, I did, and I made a little bit of money, or no, and then I lost some money, and I'm not trying to say whether that's good or bad, but I remember just personally for myself, I was telling a friend, I'm like, I didn't like what it did to me internally, like I didn't like what it did to my mind, and they're like, yeah, that's like it's greed, and I remember thinking, I don't like that feeling, I don't like that feeling. And so for myself, I just knew what is wise for me to do. I just said, maybe that's not for me. It's for some people that I know, and people are doing great in it, but just for myself. And I think for porn too, that's one of those things that, maybe it's not like crypto or whatever, but like maybe it is not good for you, right? It is not good for you. It never will be. And what sounds like very innocent and whatever now, it's potentially, it's going to really, really mess you up. But a lot of times people don't know that until it does, and you don't want to find out the hard way. You don't want to find out the hard way.
Well, thank you, Shama, for now. Because of this episode, everyone's going to pull out of crypto, and the whole thing's going to crash.
Listen,
because of you on Young Married Christian. Bitcoin's going to come after us.
All I'm saying is I didn't like what it did to me, and I wish I did. I wish it was one of those things I could look past, but there are just certain elements and certain things. Like, I'll even say the same thing about like video games. Like, I have an addictive personality. If I start something, it's going to take me a while to like stop. So I've told that to my wife, and every now and then, like, a game will come out and I'll be like, Grace, I'm going to go to the store today and I'm going to buy a game. I'm going to buy all the things today. And she's like, no, you don't need that. And it's also like, it's like a jokingly, I want to go do it. And my wife is like joking, like, maybe you shouldn't, but Grace and I both know, like, hey, like, you don't need that. And then I also know I don't want to be, I know what that'll turn me into. And then for that reason, I'm like, I'm going to refrain from it. No matter how cool or whatever that sounds. So yeah, there are just certain things that, just as a Christian in general, as a young Christian, now, as a young married Christian, now, and then just kind of going forward as a creator, where I'm like, what are things, what are books, what are podcasts, what are conversations, what are lunches and coffee meetups with people, like all of that stuff is building and adding to me, right? Is building and adding to who I'm becoming, who I want to be, what I create, what I want to create, like what I want to do. And then it's going like, maybe that isn't it, and there have been a lot of things, a lot of good. I heard somebody say recently that the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. And so, yeah, there are a lot of things where I'm like, that's the right thing. But for right now, for where I'm at, and for who I want to be and where I'm going, it's the wrong time, So therefore it's like the wrong thing. And so.
Well, and that's probably a big problem in a lot of relationships is just guys being in front of screens anyways, whether it's watching sports, playing video games, and for you, if you're like constantly filming and like that's your job and you're getting home and like you're probably having to take in a lot of content just to help you make content. So it's like, we got to have stuff to actually spoof.
Yeah.
So you're doing that. So if you're constantly taking in content, making content, you probably just want to turn your brain off and then like veg out, VeggieTales reference, to some like
He's
a
learning.
video game. So, and then it's like your Grace is like, oh my gosh, I'm married to this like guy who's just like constantly in a screen. Now going back to the cryptocurrency though, and talking about finances and stuff.
Talk about that.
No.
Go ahead.
Not going to talk crypto anymore. Something that I have experienced in a lot of church circles that I've been a part of, and you did a video about it, like the Christian entrepreneur video. And when I saw it, I was like, yes. And then you're thinking of like, all the people you want to send this to, but you're like, oh, I can't send this to those people. But have you ever been pursued to join a MLM or whatever you want to call it, multi-level marketing, pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, whatever you want to call it? Have you ever been pursued?
Yes.
Okay. What is
much.
Too much?
Yes.
Okay. So you probably have a hot take on MLMs. What's your take on MLMs?
Oh man, I think it ruins friends and family relationships. That's it. People don't like to hear that. I remember I was talking to my father-in-law about this, and just about money. Like I'm really trying to get to the bottom of like money, finances, and Christians, and wealth, and rich, and this, and not having a lot of money, and then having too much money. And my father-in-law had mentioned, that there are so many verses in Proverbs, I think Psalms and Proverbs about people who want to get rich quick, which that is the whole foundation of like pyramid schemes is getting rich quick, right? Is doing that. You do the two things, then you get three people to do the three things, and then they find three people, and it's not it. And the voraciousness and the tenacity that those people pursue, have pursued me in the past. I'm like, man, no. But hey, like, why don't you use that fuel for something else? And I've watched I've listened to podcasts and documentaries about the outcome of, a lot of those things in people's lives. And it's not good, man. It is not good.
Have you lost friends over it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've lost a couple people. And now I usually I'm just like blatantly, if somebody sends me a message like that, I'll just go, hey man, I don't know how many people you've sent this to. I don't know how many times you've copied and pasted this, but listen, you live in this town. You want to build great relationships in this town. This isn't it. Like, you're going to lose a lot of people are going to lose respect for you. And I know this is, and also you can go on websites and just figure out how many people in a, involved in a multi-level marketing company, like whatever, name the company, the top 1%, like how much money, like how many people are in that and how much did they make, right? So there are the bottom of the pyramid there are a lot of broken hearts, and then people who aren't even in the pyramid anymore, a lot of broken hearts, a lot of failures. But that also goes back to, like, there's a thing called survivorship bias, where you look at people who have survived or, made a killing on something, and you look at them and you're like, well, that's it. That's what I need to do. But hey, you're not looking at everybody else who also spent time, money, and energy and sacrifices, and didn't get there. But it's cool to be like, oh, my buddy. Everybody has a buddy who has a buddy. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Specifically in crypto, I have a buddy who has a buddy who retired. And you're like, really? How old were they? 22. Really? What are they gonna do? It's just kind of like a yeah.
Well, I mean, we're all looking for that golden ticket, that easy win, early retirement. But like sitting across from you and hearing you say, not only am I putting the grind into all my content, but I'm also working like a job on the side. You know, and I feel like that. I hope that people hear that and they hear stop, you know, kind of like Candace Payne says, like shut the shit up. Like stop making excuses. Like if you're just sitting around and you're saying, oh, I'm too tired coming home from work, and you know this MLM thing that I'm going to do, that's going to be the easy ticket. Like it's not. Like I've also listened to the podcasts that have like and read the Reddit you know, articles.
Oh my gosh, the Reddit ones. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, the information is right there. Like you can see it. But it's one of those things that grinds my gears. So if Dave Ramsey ever hears this, instead of going after the timeshare, because that's that's what my fiance does. Like, stop attacking timeshare. No, it's fine. Timeshare is whatever. But like, go after the MLMs because it is crazy to me that they exist. Because to me, it seems like it's an illegal thing. Like it is literally putting people in poverty, and it is sad to hear these stories of people that. Because they will preach to you and say like, oh, you're going to have an $800,000 house and you're going to be driving the nicest Lamborghini. And these people are literally joining so that they can pay the rent. Like they're just trying to survive. Like those are the people that are getting into this. They're in those desperate modes in a desperation season. And maybe it is a wife who's just like, oh, well, my husband's working 3 jobs. And maybe if I do this and sell this makeup, then I'll be able to allow him to go down to 2 jobs. And so they're not jumping in it for the riches. A lot of times it's mostly just like for little things. But then they're not successful and no one's giving them the abilities or tips or hints. And then they just slip further and further into it. I mean,
you know, there's one thing my father-in-law, who I've already quoted a lot today. I love my father-in-law. I love my family, you know, my wife's family, you know, a lot.
Share the wisdom.
Listen, he had mentioned, we were talking about this. We were talking about crypto and finances and money and things and whatever. And he was like, you know, a lot of people don't, the bad thing about that is people don't want to grow into money. You know, and you know, or knowledge, like wisen up into wealth, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody preaches that. A lot of people don't teach that. It's just kind of like you're gonna get rich. You want to get rich, you know? Well, it's like, well, do you want to get wise? You know, do you want to be wise enough to handle that when it happens, right? And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, that is, you know, that is the truth. And even for myself, like I wanted to have money like a long time ago, you know, but now I'm doing, you know, my wife and I, we're doing a lot better, but then now I'm very thankful because now I'm like, well, wow, like, gosh, thankfully I didn't have this way back when, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know what I was doing back then. Like did take, you know, it didn't take like, I didn't need to like find money. I needed to find like the wisdom and the experiences and the conversations and the failings and to listen to and to read the books and the movies and the documentaries and the podcast to all kind of build up my understanding of money and how to be wise with money and how to give and how to pay people and how to, I mean, even, you know, use a CPA and ask the right questions and the, you know, everything that kind of comes with it is something that people just go, oh, I can probably make 7 figures next year. It's kind of like, whoa, are you going to be able to mentally process making, you know, it's like the curse of the lottery. So many people win the lottery, just kind of like, I don't know, ruins their lives. And then, I don't know, us down here were like, how $25 million? Okay, sure, the government takes half, but how can that ruin my life? You know, and you know, money's just one of those weird things, man. I'm always talking about not money, about like I want to get rich, but I'm always just so curious about like how, like it's a mysterious thing, right? I have a cousin in Tanzania who her and her husband, she was a teacher, she was a high school teacher, and then she started doing business. She is immensely wealthy. In Tanzania, immensely wealthy, does so many things, owns hotels and houses that she rents out and businesses and sells cars and car parts and land and I mean crazy. And I look at somebody like that and I'm like, wow, how did you know how to do that? How did you know how to do that in a third world country where a government worker makes what, like $75 a month or something like that? How did you, you know? And for that reason, you know, I know it's it's God, right? It is God, but then also there is just like the wisdom and the understanding and the wit, right? And just like the I don't want to say luck. What is another word for like luck, right? Or just like the chance, right? And the taking chances, I'll say, just happened to put that person in the right place at the right time, and then from that they were able to be, successful. So I think nobody likes the journey of it, but the journey is almost it's mandatory in order to get there, to get there in one piece, I'll say.
And her answer wasn't MLMs.
No,
okay.
It was not.
Yeah, because it grinds my gears. And another thing that grinds my gears, we're just gonna call this whole segment "What Grinds Debo's Grinds His Gears," is woke culture. Yeah. And I know that you are aware of woke culture because you literally had to do a song kind of like mocking it with White Christmas, and you're like, oh no,
multiracial Christmas.
Multiracial Christmas, because at first you're singing White Christmas and Petey comes in, he's like, Shama, we need to make this more
inclusive.
And at the end it just gets more ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then finally you're just kind of like, oh, here you go, woke culture. So what are your thoughts on kind of like where the woke culture is kind of taking over?
Man, I don't know. I really like that. What's so funny is we made a song called Multiracial Christmas, and a lot of the comments were like, hey, why aren't and I put subtitles on it, and people were like, why aren't the subtitles in Spanish?
Of course.
Where's the Japanese version? And I remember thinking
take that video
down.
Oh
yeah. But it was funny. But then now that I think about it, I'm like, we should have tried to be we should have had more and more options for anybody. But man, I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously this country is like very divided. And it's a touchy subject. It's a touchy subject because there are some people who really feel like, I'll say like production. There are people, I've heard people talk about like, hey, we need more people of color in production in the upstate, where I live. And the thing is like, they're not like they don't know about production. I delivered pizza. I didn't know that you could make money behind a camera. But there are more opportunities that some people just have kind of growing up. Like I knew about music and I knew about so many different things because I grew up in around a lot of white people, and I went to like a predominantly white school and we went to a predominantly white church. And so I think it is very funny that there are people who are more passionate about wokeism than I am, and I feel like, hey, I've literally got skin in the game. But yeah, man, I don't understand. That video that we made, I think it was very funny, and I enjoyed making it. And it was almost like this kind of like a blanket thing, but people come out with bigger opinions on it. But I don't know, man. Sometimes I think it's sad. I am going to say this. So I grew up around a really great pastor in a great community. Pastor Raven Stewart, who passed away here a couple of weeks ago, and his wife. And so the story goes like this. My dad went to he moved to the States. His first Sunday in Alabama, he went to a black church in the morning because he lived with some people. Like, hey, we're going to go to a black church. He went, and my dad has a thick African accent. He talks like this. And he talked like this. My dad also passed away back in 2018, sadly. And my dad went to a black church in the morning, and he said, I could not understand anything. I couldn't understand because he just didn't speak like the slang. He didn't understand it. And so that afternoon, he went to a white church that just happened to be Pastor Raven and Miss Jewel's church, And this is the church that he attended. He kept attending Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday faithfully. And this is the church that brought my mom and myself to the States. This is the church that we attended, and this family practically adopted us. I called Pastor Abe like my grandfather, and Miss Jewel my grandmother, because I was closer to them than I was my African grandparents who passed away while we were here. So I knew them. We spent, they invited us to their family reunions and Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and holidays and all these different things, and we'd stayed at their house if our parents were out of town. It was just like this this really loving relationship. Now I'm saying all that to say, like, and when they moved to South Carolina, we moved to South Carolina, and they're the reason why they connected us with the mission organization that my family was involved in. And my mom still does mission work with this organization. So now there is this, I don't know how many other black families, the Stewards helped along the way. I'm sure plenty, but there is the woke expectation. Now I've heard people say, like, I've seen comments where somebody has asked somebody, like, hey, like, what are you doing for black people today? Or, hey, what have you done for people of color last month, or something like that? And I think that's dangerous, because I will say, the white couple, Pastor Raven and Miss Jewel, what they did for my family, for myself and my family in the early 90s has changed my life, right? I don't know. I'm not keeping track. Like, I'm not counting how many other people that they've helped. But the people who I'm having this conversation with you because of them. And the videos get viewed today, and Tony and I are here because of them. So it has created this domino effect that if we keep score and we figure out, okay, every company needs to hire this many people, or and I don't know, I think that becomes a very slippery slope. And for me, I will say it hurts my heart to watch people I know and love who have been, vital in supporting myself, my family growing up, now navigate these waters, because now, they're expected to do more and people are demanding more. But man, I mean, people who have, there's a lady who she used to send me $5, on my birthday for like 10 plus years, and this white lady, and I loved it. I needed that. I was in college. I needed that $5 more than ever, I don't know how many other people she did that for, but it was just extremely vital, and I really, really enjoyed that. So I think I think where woke culture has gone wrong has put this huge. There are people who are helping people, and if we want to ask how and when and where in the terms, that kind of gets blurry, and I think that really, really, I don't know, it causes a lot of casualties along the way, because. I think everything happens for a season and a reason, and it just so happened that the most inclusive, loving people that I know was a white family in Birmingham, Alabama in the early 90s, and for that reason, like, there have been so many people. I think about Tony, who I'm here with, flew down with me, his family. I've known them for the past 10 years, and they've invited me, and I've ate at their table so many times, and live on a farm, and they cook really well. They're Italians, and they cook really well. And it is so funny, because I went to their house and ate there when I was single, and when my wife and I, when Grace and I were engaged, we went and ate their dinner, and now I've taken my kids there, and so there are really, really great people who I don't think are setting out to be more inclusive, and we're setting out, and they didn't put friggin' goals on a board at the beginning of the year, but they're doing it, and the people who are doing it are working very in silence and in obscurity, and the people who are kind of making a lot of noise, I don't know what they are doing, but there have been so many people who I think have been kind of damaged with by a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that with the woke culture, the problem that I have the most is that it constantly almost points to like a selfishness, like, this is bothering me. Yeah. I want this to change because of what matters to me, and I feel like that that is not the message of Christianity, and that's not the message of unity. Like, the message should be a more selfless, like, okay, maybe that's not for me. That content's not for me, but maybe it's for somebody else. How about I just go out and find other content, that is for me, or that does relate to me. And I feel like the culture shift to me just seems like more of this, like, consumer, what can I get from this? Why is this not for me? Like, and they need every single thing to be perfectly directed to them, or else they will put that person on blast because now we have social media and everyone has a voice, and now we can easily just go on and write a bad review or a comment. And I feel like as a comedian that is doing the things that you're doing, where you're constantly like tiptoeing that line, especially in the church world, like how do you find that balance?
Man, a lot of times, I won't even. There are certain terms and words and things that I say that I've seen and we've made jokes about that I'm like, hey, I don't even want to come close to a lot of that because I know it can be, it can be confusing. You know, I don't want to be misunderstood in any way. I don't want somebody to kind of see me say something or hear me kind of do. Make a joke that could be misconstrued in a way that somebody could watch that and go, oh, he means this, or he's taking a jab at these people. And that's just where I've been at, and thinking about all this stuff is just kind of like, like I've seen some people make, and obviously, COVID, everything that happened last year, it's been detrimental to a lot of people. A lot of people have lost lives. A lot of people have made a lot of great money, from last year, and some things that have happened, and investments, and selling houses and all these other things. So it has been both great and both absolutely terrible for so many different people. And people are like, oh, you should make a joke about COVID. You should make a joke. And I'm like, man, that is so polarizing though. Like, the opinion of people about, what to wear, when not to wear it, what to do, where to go, what to do, and my mom was in Tanzania, and I was telling my mom, hey, come to the States for Christmas. And she came for Christmas, and it was just like, hey, like, I'm not, like, I love you. We want to spend time with you. Come spend time with your grandkids. And she didn't. She sadly got COVID, and she had it rough for a couple of weeks. So there is a thing, there are certain things like that. There are certain things like politics, where, certain aspects of Christianity as well that I'm like, there is something funny there, but I don't think the funny thing is what people are most confused about and argue about the most. Those aren't the kind of jokes that I want to make. Some would say those are the jokes you do need to make, but I'm like, oh, you need to pick a side. I want every side to watch what we make. I want every side. I want all the viewers. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, they're like, hey, I want you to do this podcast. We have this idea to make a segment that had like a top 10 WTFs. That was the name of the segment. Top 10 church WTFs. And I was like, hey man, can we just rename that? Like it's still going to be funny, right? But can we just rename it? I don't want to be a part of that in a way. So yeah, that's just where I'm at, man. Like,
yeah, around here we say "what the heaven."
Yeah.
What the frick?
Can y'all bleep that out in post? By the way, I don't want anybody hearing me say that.
Mother cruncha. Yes. No, I think that in talking about like that selflessness, and even you saying like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that family, or maybe you wouldn't have had that meal in college if it wasn't for that lady sending you the $5
for my birthday, man.
And you think about that domino effect that happens, and I think that with woke culture, it's just they're having the expectation. Or thinking that the person has bad intentions, and they're starting with that. Mm-hmm. They're not assuming the best from the person. And I know that like for us, like here at Young Married Christian, like one of the things that kind of fires me up and gets me passionate is that I know that from the beginning, and I mean, we could be canceled at this point. I mean, we've said a lot of things, and
my career just started, man. I'm trying to.
No, woke culture could have already came at us. I mean, but the thing that for me makes me believe that this show can never be canceled, or maybe will make the woke culture come at us even more, is that our mission behind this whole thing has a very selfless purpose. Yeah. And we are trying to get every foster child into a gospel-centered home.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things that is bigger than us. That is one of those things that can create those domino effects like you talked about, where that child will have someone take them in and be able to get them to a place where maybe someday they are sitting across doing a podcast interview, going to Universal Studios. And so we are giving our listeners with every episode the opportunity to kind of process, is this something that God is putting on my heart? Is this something that I'm being called to? And, am I supposed to, maybe pray about this more or look into this more, the whole foster care thing, because there's 400,000 kids in America in the foster care system, which is also about the same number of churches in America, about 400,000 churches in America as well. So it's an estimated number for both. It's not exact, but I mean, it's to the point where if one family from every church in America was to take a kid in, problem solved.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a solvable problem.
Right.
And we believe that, if the Bible says it, we should probably do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's clearly there. And so if you're listening to this today and you're thinking, you know what, maybe this is something that I want to look into a little bit more, you can actually text the word freedom, FREEDOM, to the number 833-370-1610. And what that will do is you will get a response where you have three choices: pray, partner, participate. So you can either do our 7-day prayer challenge. You can learn how you can partner with people who are already doing this. Whether you be partnering with the foster family, partnering with the biological family, partnering with the church, partnering with an organization. Because it's even important to partner with the family that has lost their child. Maybe their child has been put into a foster situation, and that family needs to know that, hey, they're being prayed for, that they can recover, that they can come back from this. And then, participating, which is if you're like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to learn how to actually do this thing. And so, like, when you're talking about the domino effect that's happened for you, I think about, like, the church can do this as well.
Right. And another thing, too, is, a lot of times I heard somebody say at a conference once that what you do for, kids ministry in a church, adoption, fostering, all those things, you don't really see the fruits of your labor immediately, right? But man, when you do see that, man, how sweet are those fruits, right? Because it really is like life changing. I think about there's one example that I'll say. There's a lady that I know who is a language teacher. She teaches English as a second language. I think they call it something else right now, but she said something very interesting. She said, a lot of times you teach. You can teach somebody English, right? You can teach them the language. You can teach them any language, but more than anything, they need a language parent, right? So it really is, and that's what the Stewart family was to my father and myself. Kind of growing up is hey, not only do you need to learn the language, but you also need a space to mess up. You need the space to learn, to ask questions that you probably can't ask anybody else, but somebody to kind of take you alongside and go, hey, say it this way, or learn this, or this is important, or and all of those things. Like, I mean, so vital. Like, I remember being taught, how to say yes sir, no ma'am, no sir, all those things, and just extremely vital. And I would say I'm like a byproduct of a person, an immigrant, the child of immigrants who was raised by a bigger who was kind of fostered by a bigger family. And I mean, it has really changed my life. Really changed my life.
Yeah, and I think that I hear a lot of times, like, what bigger thing can you do? Or like when you think about, like, how can I use my life in the biggest way possible? I hope that woke culture wakes up and decides, hey, there's bigger stuff out there than jumping on the back of Shama for not putting Spanish subtitles. Like, are you freaking kidding me, people? Like, is that really what is just like making you not be able to go on with your life? Because you could literally just sit there and think, oh, you know what? There's actually people out there who are struggling to have a life. And that could be where I divert my energy. Right. Instead of trying to bring these other people down, these other things down, how about you bring someone in to build them up? Right. And that is what we're trying to go for here.
And that's a marathon. That's a marathon, not a sprint.
No, it's not the MLM of
right,
life.
Right. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this and then, oh, boom. But it is. I mean, it is. Yeah. Like I remember learning, simple things, how to build something, how to use a hammer, how to use all these different things, are elements that you want to learn along the way. But I'm thankful now I can look back and like, wow, I remember when I learned this from that person, or I learned this from that person, and they were, selfless enough to kind of take the time with me and let me be bad at it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna make mistakes. Like, okay, so you spoke about marathons. The biggest marathon that you've probably taken on in your life, and you're just starting, is marriage with Grace. So I want to jump in to that, and like dating, relationships, like all of that. I call it a marathon because like you're gonna fall down a couple times. You're gonna
or if you're me, you're gonna get pushed.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into abuse in relationship. No.
I laughed too hard. I'm sorry. Can y'all cut the laugh out when y'all?
We'll make you just like throw your head back and it's just silence. Yeah. Because you were like shocked at the thought of ever being abused in a relationship.
How could anybody? Yeah.
But I want to pick your mind, and please tell me you have a good story for this, because I know that every relationship has a bad date. So leading up to your engagement, leading up to your marriage, I'm sure that every date wasn't a gold medal winner.
Yeah.
Do you have a bad date story?
Are you talking about particularly with Grace?
Particularly with Grace, yeah.
No.
They've all been winners.
Yeah, all the dates with Grace. The one bad date that we did have was on our honeymoon. But honestly, like, she had already signed the papers. Like, it was, like, come on. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Leave? The flight leaves in 10 days, so you have to ride along with me. No, I'm just kidding. It was just on our honeymoon. But yeah, I was in the dating world. I was not good, man. I didn't date until I was 18 and in college firstly, right? And I got dumped. Like I'd ask girls out, get rejected. Yeah, I know, me. Hey, me. I made VeggieTales Remix. No, I'm just kidding. I've been saying that so much ironically. But no, I got dumped. Like, I had maybe two serious relationships before I met Grace, and they were not good. They were not good. And they ended, it was one of those things where I was just kind of thrown out of the plane without a parachute. I'm like, oh crap. I was enjoying the ride. But when the pilot pushes you out, in this scenario, the pilot's the ex-girlfriends.
Yes.
Yeah. But I will say when I met Grace, I'd not dated for maybe 2 years before I met Grace. It was just one of those things where, I was like, I didn't have a good time. I didn't have a good time in that world, and obviously the people I didn't have a good time either.
Hence being dumped.
Yeah, hence being dumped. Yeah, and so when I met Grace, I was 26, and she was gonna turn 26 maybe a couple months later, and it just all kind of clicked. It all just kind of worked. I think I was done striving. I was done, kind of running, and she was done, striving and all these things. And we went out. My friend Mason Bain, who was also the best man at my wedding, and he's one of the guitar players in the worship song. He introduced us. He just said he went to college with Grace, and he was like, hey, you need to meet her. She plays piano really well. And he sent me a picture of her, and then he told her, hey, you need to meet Shama. He's pretty funny. I think you'll hit it off. And,
so he didn't send a picture of you.
He did. He was like, listen, he's got his personality phenomenal. When you see, charismatic.
But when you see him, just remember he's funny.
Yeah, just remember that he's funny. And his mattress is on the floor.
You weren't still on the futon at that point.
Yeah, no. I had graduated. All right. No. So we met up, and yeah, we hit it off. Well, we didn't really hit it off when we met, but then I was like, I was like, hey, let's get breakfast tomorrow. Let's get breakfast. And we got breakfast the next day, and we just talked, and we never stopped talking. We never stopped texting. And I was like, you just got to marry somebody like that, right? You're like, hey, we got to make this cheaper. I'm spending a lot of phone calls here, No, but we just kept on talking, and we had so much in common just in terms of our families and our upbringing, and yeah, it just worked. It just worked, and there was never, maybe we had like one time that we were like, man, what do we, maybe just one time that we were like not angry, but just kind of like, just kind of frustrated with each other for just like a day or so. But after that, we both knew what we wanted, and we both knew that we were serious and we weren't playing any games anymore. And yeah, so it really did just work. It was one of those times I've heard people say, when you know, and now I've told that to people, and I hated when people told that to me, but it really is like, when you know. So even buying a ring, bought an engagement ring. It was like, I did leave and I was like, oh, it's so expensive. Now I'm like, oh, it's not expensive. But now I've got VeggieTales money. But at the time I was like, gosh, I can't believe it. What's the return policy?
They're like, no, you don't want that.
So you got that, right? You got it. No, I love her. I just don't love the price. Yeah, but yeah, it's been, and I mean, yeah, it's been really, really good. And we courted. I courted her. Like, I stayed with her family when I would, because she lived like 3 hours away, so it was like a long distance relationship. So yeah, it was all those things that some friends were like, you're dumb. I can't believe you're gonna. But I'm like, no, like, I love her and this is working, and we both know it feels right.
Now, and you guys have been married how long?
We've been married. We're going on like 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years this fall, September 1st.
Okay, I'm not a mathematician. But
2018, we got married in 2018.
Okay, I'm not a mathematician, but you guys you met her 3 years ago.
Yes.
You've been married almost 3 years.
Yes.
So it was.
And our son turns 2 soon. Yes.
So
don't do too much math.
What was the what was the race into marriage?
What was the race? Oh,
why?
No, we
the
met.
Hurry
Okay,
to get married.
We got married in 2018, but we met fall of 2017, and then I proposed in May of 2018, and we got married in September.
Okay, so you'd been dating, but how long before?
We had been dating about like less than a year when we got married. Yeah.
But when you know, you know.
When you know, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
That was just one of those things where I was like, hey, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And my family and her family both, it wasn't. We didn't have to do too much like fighting, and we didn't have to fight or convince anybody. They knew, hey, Shama, I live in Greenville, and I love the Lord, and Grace worked, and she lived in Charleston and loved the Lord, and we met each other, and yeah.
And through that, what was the moment that you can like look back and say, that was the moment I knew that she was the one?
Man, there are many moments. My wife is extremely, very much like her name, is extremely gracious. Extremely gracious. And I sometimes am lacking in that area. And there was one time that I mentioned something to her that she did not appreciate. I'm not going to say what it was, but she was just very, very kind about that. And I remember thinking, wow, I don't handle stuff like that. I don't handle stuff like that. And I really, really appreciated that. And she's been that way ever since. And I'm extremely thankful. Like she's extremely loving and gracious. And I see that. I've seen that her graciousness towards me and towards our son, who's going to turn 2 next month and is a knucklehead like his dad, but she is just slow to wrath and is patient and is very loving and yeah, just from I knew that I really, really appreciated that. It just, I really, really appreciated that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're pretty much a veteran. You've been doing this thing.
Got a book on the way, by the way. No, I don't have a book on marriage.
If you were to write a book, or just like even just a page, what would be your one advice, piece of advice that you would give to someone, like a man who's new to marriage, or who's maybe thinking about marriage?
Man, I remember somebody. I don't know why this landed well with me, but I remember somebody mentioning to me before I got married. He just goes, I don't even think this man was a Christian. He just goes, hey, just remember to be kind to one another. And even when I say that today, it sounds so simple but so profound. Be kind to one another. And man, sometimes I'm better. Sometimes my wife and I both we're better at that sometimes than others, but it really is this this striving to be kind to each other. And I will say, now that we have kids, kindness and love looks very different in our family now. Now it's like loading the dishwasher unprompted, after dinner. There are so many different things that you do, it's not sexy, it's not like romantic. It's not this candlelit meal, but really do appreciate, just like these acts of helping out with the kids unprompted, or, kind of doing, I work from home, so doing something in between that, or going to the store, or picking up something. Yeah. All those different things, it really just goes, essentially marriage. I heard somebody say it's like, it's like a TV show. So it's essentially just like a lot of reruns. So you already know what somebody's going to say or do, what they're going to eat. Hey, I'm at so-and-so. You already know what I want. You already know what I want. So from that, it's really just kind of being kind along the way.
So your best advice comes from Disney Cinderella, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was actually Cinderella who told me that.
Yeah, be kind and have courage. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Watch Cinderella. You'll get all your best marriage advice.
Or listen to this podcast, by the way. Either one.
That works too. I don't. If you're telling them right now, I think they're already
too
they're
late.
there.
Sorry, you're
too
invested.
Late. Yeah.
But
you're such a funny guy, so I'm sure that you and Grace are constantly just I'm sure you're having her laughing all day long, and she's just like, oh my gosh, you're so funny. I'm so glad that I married.
I wish.
No, I hope she's not everyone else thinks you're funny,
please.
but cut it out here.
Here, sir?
Yeah. No, we don't know. But how are you able to, because you're a comedic person, you've got the talent, how do you inject laughter into your relationship, and how can somebody listening to this practically inject laughter into maybe their marriage or their relationship?
Yeah. Grace is really, really funny. She's given me so many tags and bits here and there that I'm like, wow, that's really, really good. And she's like, hey, I'll be like, hey, do you want to get in front of the camera and do it? She's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, do you want credit for that? She's like, no, I don't want credit for that. I'm like, wow, that's all I want. I want to get in front of the camera and I want credit for what I do. Yeah, at our house, our pace of life is pretty different, and I'm always doing stuff around the house that is less than she probably doesn't think this is funny, but I think it's hilarious. And I'm writing bits, and I'll be in my guitar in my office writing a song, and I'll come around the corner. I'm like, hey, you got to listen to this. I just figured out the bridge for this. So there is a lot of that, but a lot of it also is just just me being a dad and being weird, and and wearing socks. Wearing socks and slides around the house, and eating boiled eggs over the trash can, and that's the easy way to peel them. What are you talking about? You got to peel them over the. So there's a lot of that. So there are a lot of funny moments like that, but I really enjoy it.
So you're saying that right now, men, if you're listening to this, if you want to add and inject humor into your relationship,
socks and slides,
socks on your feet, go running full speed from the bedroom.
Actually, it's the slippers. Yeah. And you can slide too. Yeah.
Full speed, and then as soon as you hit the doorway into the living room, just full glide.
Slide.
Full glide.
Yeah.
And if they stick and you flip and you face plant, then that will be even better.
That's actually funnier than slides are like the slippers. The slippers with the, what is it called? It's like the Nike Adidas slides. That's what I'm talking about.
Hold up, you're wearing Nike slippers?
They're actually Adidas slippers and socks. Yeah. I need to slide in them. I probably can just slide in the socks. The shoes have a little more grip on them.
Man, yeah, I've never.
But there's that. But then also, I remember one thing. A friend of mine told me. He told me when I got married, he's because he knew it was funny. He goes, "Hey, keep sarcasm out of the bedroom." And I remember thinking, "Wow, really good." So yeah, maybe that's what I'll say: is be funny, whatever. But there are certain elements that you don't want to make fun of. And you don't want to be sarcastic about, and just learn the place and time. But other than that, everything is free game. Slip and slide, and I'll do this thing sometimes where I'll wear the shirt, I'll pull the neck of the t-shirt over my head, and cover up my ears. Do you know how people do that?
Like Cornholio.
Is that who is that?
From Beavis and Butthead.
Yes. I'll do that, and it'll be I'll be working in my office, and I'll round the corner, and I'll do that. And then there are a couple of other life bits that I do too. I'm not gonna.
No, you got to now. these men in Nike slippers, Adidas slippers, and with their shirts pulled over their head, they're like, "What's the missing piece? We need to know. We got to finish the Trinity."
Oh man, no, it's just funny. I like to do if I round a corner and come back. I'm like, the bit. I'll like do a bit between then and now, so I'll come back as like a different character. I sing around the house too, so I do this one character. Character are always fun, but I do a character where I sing like a modern song in a I'll sing a modern song in like an older Christian voice. Like, what is a modern song? Jireh, my provide, or what is the? And I sound incredibly white when I do that, right? It's crazy. What is the you're a good father. That's who you are. That's who you are, and I'm loved by you. Just finding the little weird runs.
I love that.
I've got miracles on miracles. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't. So I just do that around the house a lot. My wife does not. So works with pop songs too.
I love everything about that except for what does it mean to sound white? What is
you
that?
know, it's just it's like an older. I'm sweating.
No, we do that at the house, but we will take songs and turn them country. And so my big one is, if you want some, come get some, because where I'm from, we tote big guns, and everybody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows something about it. So we'll do like Lil Jon songs, let's go. If you want it, you can get it. Let me know. And I've tried to share that with my friend who's actually in a country band. I'm like, it would be hilarious if you did it.
It's so funny.
He has played it a total of 0 times so far.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Like what is it? What is a pop? What is a like a rap song?
What is
so
rap?
live your life. Hey, hey. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Either way, it's a lot of
Paper
fun.
chaser, living my life.
What is that? What is that? What is that one? No, there's that one song. It's like no.
Pinky, bring us to the moon. Hey, what y'all trying to do?
So, 24 karat magic in the air. Yeah, just sound like a dinner singer.
Make a dragon want to retire. Sorry, I think that was Barack Obama, maybe. I don't know what happened there. So
wait, what makes it a Barack Obama? See, I gotcha. 2 can play that game.
Moving on. So everything on your Instagram looks so heavenly, as all couples do on the Insta. But I'm sure that it is not all just like raindrops, rainbows, and
fluffy clouds, chubby babies,
rose petals. Yes, exactly.
So I've had a lot of growth just in terms of just like my career, and our family has grown. Our finances have grown a little bit more. So navigating all of that this year has been a little challenging. But more, like I wouldn't want to figure this out with anybody else but Grace, and so yeah, that's been one of the challenges. Like you asked, what are some of the challenges? Like it is very different. Like some months are better than others. Some months I'm on the phone a lot. Some months I'm on emails. Some weeks I'm on emails, and sometimes I'm gone, and sometimes I'm home. And it's really hard to plan the future because I don't know what work will come from where. And then also added now we have 2 kids, so now just figuring that out. And I'm gonna be very transparent here. Last week, I thought about where I was saying this about, but last week, last week, a couple days, we didn't have some good days. And we've since made up. But Grace towards the last, and it wasn't like bad. It just got icy. It just gets a little just a little spicy around the house for a couple days. But it is tense. I'm working a lot more, and she's sometimes with the kids a lot more, and I'm trying to deal with the kids, and then I'm trying to work, and I'm trying to take a call. So for that, sometimes we just kind of rub each other the wrong way in terms of just execution on certain things. And the other day, because I knew that I'm coming to do the show, so I'm coming to do Young Married Christians, and I'm a young married Christian, and I'm not having a good time, being young or married or a Christian, all 3. I'm like struggling.
You're out.
And it's so funny.
I gotta get to Orlando.
I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go talk about it. And Grace said the other day, and this wasn't like a jab. She said it. We were both laughing. She goes, "What are you gonna go say on the podcast?" And I was like, ah. But yeah, I mean, I will say that yeah, she did say that. And I was like, gosh. But then also I was like, hey, I think we need therapy. But it wasn't like we need therapy. It was like, hey, maybe we should go to therapy. And she was like, maybe we should. And honestly, I'm not saying that to say like our marriage is like in trouble or anything, but like we have grown we're going on 3 years. And the past 3 years have been so crazy that it feels like a lifetime, going from creating and doing all these, and then people, hey, do you want to come down to Florida? And hey, do you want to go to do you want to do this and work and all these other things, and a TV show in the middle there, and then another TV show coming up, and then recently somebody was like, hey, do you want to write a book? We'll help. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I'm being pulled in all these different directions, but then also I'm home and I want to be a great dad, and then I also want to pay the bills at home, and I also, we want to buy a house, and then we're like, hey, let's get a minivan. So there are all these different things, but then I also want to play with my son, so I want to take a call and play with my son, and then put all this stuff. So just in terms of, it's different. Like if I went to a cubicle every single day, that'd be easier, right? Because I'd leave it all on the cubicle. I wouldn't even take anything with me. So having like an unconventional career and lifestyle, means for like an it's a different marriage. Our kids are gonna be raised very different. Our kids are mixed. I heard somebody say, a pastor once say that a marriage is a collision between like two histories, right? Like two histories. There's your history and then your spouse's history. And so our collision has been, it spans 2 continents, it spans a big family for her in Missouri and in Charleston, and my family is in Greenville, and some in around the United States, and then in Tanzania. And so this the collision, the union of our histories, and then also like my history in comedy and her history. My wife was a music major, and she plays piano beautifully, and she taught piano for a long time. So it really is trying to like manage, okay, like what can we do? How can you support me, and then how can I support you in your pursuits and your goals? But then also let's raise kids. But then also let's be great Christians. But then also like let's plan for retirement. But then also like let's stay. Let's do things that are going to keep us young and healthy. And then also where do we need to take our son to daycare now? So that in and of itself has been. And then also this is going to be a great financial month. Hey, this month isn't going to be too great. So, maybe let's buy off-brand LaCroix, so, which is a sin. Don't ever do it. But so all those things together have made for a very interesting marriage. And I'll say last week, it was not nice, but at the same time, my wife and I both are very, very committed to figuring it out. And we're very committed to not staying, angry or frustrated at each other for a long time. And we're just committed to those things, and to to each other, and to this marriage, and to our kids, and to our families, and on all those things, and to being great Christians, and then also to build, this crazy to be in a crazy career in comedy that nobody even knows. People are like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, whatever anybody will let me do, but I don't know those people who are going to let me do. So it's different. I'll say that our marriage is different, and it's a great different.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of listeners aren't going to be able to necessarily relate to the one person in the marriage going out creating content that is bringing in the masses, and the other one's, stay-at-home mom. But I think that they can relate to the argument side of things. And you said right before you left, things got a little icy, a little spicy. And I hope that the way you resolved that was not, all right, I'm going to Universal Studios. I'll see you in a couple days.
I'm just angry. Every picture of me riding the rides, I'm just like, oh, I'm so angry. Things at home aren't good. No, I had to resolve.
Take a selfie, send it to her. Still mad.
I'm still mad. I'm still mad, but I just rode the Hulka coaster or whatever that was.
I'm hulking out about our argument. Yeah, I'm about to go green for our marriage.
Yeah.
So
going green for our marriage sounds like a Dave Ramsey campaign.
That's a totally different thing.
That has not yet happened.
Yeah.
And if he does, we're suing him.
That's right, Dave Ramsey. We got that.
Go green for your marriage. No.
Like, how is it that you guys resolve arguments and disagreements in your house?
talking, and it really just, hey man, it's this new thing. You use your voice. If you don't have a voice, your hands. It really is just kind of going, hey, this is what happened, and this is what I appreciated, and this is what I didn't appreciate, and how can we do better in the future? And those are candid, those are weird conversations, those are hard conversations, but for us, we're like, we don't want that to happen. We want to do better. How can we do better? And it's figuring that out together. And I mean, for us, for this last time, I mean, we're like, we've always talked about, hey, should we go to therapy? Maybe we should go. And it's seriously not like we freaking need it. You need it. But it is like us together, like, hey, maybe we need to go talk to somebody. Maybe we need to go talk to somebody about marriage and life and our family and our kids and how we need to deal with these things. And a lot of times I'll say therapy, and when we go to, her parents' house, or when my mom comes and visits, or, when we're at dinner with another couple, like all of that is like therapeutic for us, because, so there is a group in South Carolina where we live. It's a group of interracial couples who are about our age, who the guys, there's one girl who are from East Africa. They moved to the States with their family, and they've married white women. And we all have biracial kids running around and fighting and playing with each other when we meet up. So it's this really, really beautiful picture of not only like a multiracial marriage, but it is also like a multiracial, group and outings. And we had like a Christmas party last year, and it is awesome. So it's talking to them and being like, hey, like, what do you say when something like this happens, or what do you do when you want to? How do you express that? And that I never, when you all reached out, I remember thinking like, man, what has saved me as a young married Christian has been young married Christians. Being around young married Christians as well has been like extremely vital for me. Because we can compare notes, right? We can figure things out. For us, where I'm African and my wife is, from the Midwest. How do we do this? How do y'all do this? How do you plan on raising your kids? What culture do you plan on dominating in your kids' lives? Are you going to teach them Swahili? Are you going to teach them another language? Or can they take French when they go to school, or Spanish, or all these different things? Or what school are you putting them in? So there have been so many questions, right? That maybe old married Christians have, but the people that I've related to the most have been young married Christians who are also like down in the weeds, in the thick of it with us. And we can ask them like, hey, how are you doing this? And then they tell us. And then from there, like, man, we leave and we'll be on the drive back. And we're like, wow, did you remember what Dara said, or Mark, or Daniel? Like, all these things, we're like, man, that was really good. I can't, and a lot of times it has been great moments, and of course, and date ideas and trips, but I've learned so much more from just, hey, we had a bad. I remember some couple friends of ours, Mark and Dara, who are Mark is from Kenya, and they said, one time they said they had a really kind of, and I don't think they'd mind me saying this, but they had like some rift in their marriages, just from culture and being and all these different things. And they said, we knew we weren't going to get a divorce, but we knew we were just going to be very unhappy for the rest of our lives, very unhappy for the rest of our lives. And I was like, wow, and so even from something like that, just even us being young married Christians too, we're like, hey, now my wife and I, we think about that story, and their candidness in sharing that, and we can go, wow, like, what can we do? And they have since resolved, and they have a great marriage, and they're going back to Kenya to be missionaries.
Praise God.
But but also, like, and they have 3 beautiful kids who we love watching and hanging out with. But now it's even for us, we're just trying to figure it out, like, okay, how can we also be, young married and happy, right, the entire time, but young married and be on the same team the entire time as well. And yeah.
Man, you just did our branding for us. I mean, it's just gonna be young married and then words that just like keep, it's like Universal Studios, like Universal is, and then you fill in the thing. But
I'm gonna let you guys use that as long as in 30 years you bring me back for old married Christians. All right.
Old married.
This is when I'm gonna be like 70 pounds heavier. I'm gonna have like a mustache. I'm gonna be balding, and I'm like, I did it, Debo. I did it. I was faithful, and we were young, married, and happy. And I'm young, married, and successful. And I'm young, married, and retired.
Well, I will no longer be Debo. I will be D-bold. Not because I'm bold, just old. Okay.
I love how you figured out your branding. That's like a Robert, the phases of a Robert. You go from like a Robbie, Robert, and then you're like Bob, and that's, you've already figured out your character arc.
I never knew where Debo was gonna go. Now that I'm 31, I honestly feel like it needs to go somewhere different. Like, I don't know. But with all of that, I feel like as far as our country has gone, as far as our culture has gone, I'm sure that you guys still come against being a multiracial couple. I know that you had made a joke in one of your videos about, like, a multiracial couple has a child, and it's the first rapper to make a mixed tape.
Yeah.
that was clever, and it's cute, but there's a serious side of this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that going out in public, some of my best friends, Molly and Anthony Melvin, same situation as you. She's white. He is very black.
Yeah.
Very dark. And when they go out in public, their 3 mixed kids are with them, and they get those looks. And sometimes people will say certain things. They're living in a very small town in Kentucky, and right there in that Bible Belt, you're in South Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that it's not all daisies for you guys.
Yeah.
How has that been? Have there been any kind of conflict coming your way?
Yeah, there was a one thing in particular. So my wife, she went to college in Greenville, but she lived in Charleston, which is about three hours away. So when she was in college, she attended a small country church, and she played piano there, and I think she led like their music. She was like the music director there. It's a small. I don't think they even exceeded 50 people, and those people kind of like adopted her while she was in college, and she really loved them. And then when she moved back after she graduated, she moved back to Charleston to live with her family, and during that time, that's when we met. After a few months after she had moved back, and I think she had maybe put on Facebook that we were dating at the time, and some of the people from the country church, which Greenville's like a kind of up and coming kind of city, but there are still pockets like you kind of drive out and you're like, whoa, there's a lot of different flags out here. You know what I mean? So Greenville is like that. You kind of go, hey, this is extremely, this is kind of like a modern city, but then you kind of drive out and you're like, there's a lot of like squatted trucks, or whatever. So it is different. And so while she was, when she posted that she was dating me, one of the people from her church, I don't know if she had attended the church randomly while she was up here. I think she did. She went to the church one Sunday, and they'd asked her, hey, what is this about you and that African American fella? And she said, yeah, that's my boyfriend. And they said, I think one of the people said, this is also 2017. They said, well, we don't agree with it, but yeah, and that was kind of like the end of like her kind of friendship or relationship with them. And and she told me that, and I wasn't like fuming. I just remember thinking like, wow, this, sad. This is very sad. And it really hurt her for a while because, she had been close with these people for a very long time. And yeah, still later on too, I think she had gotten some messages too, and it wasn't anything harsh. It was just kind of like, we don't necessarily agree with that. But what's very kind of crazy is so from that, there was one gentleman who had went there who was always very kind to Grace. After we got married a couple months later, he reached out to Grace and said, hey, I'd love to, can I buy you and your husband ice cream? And so we went up and we went out, we met him for ice cream, and we ate ice cream, and Grace was pregnant at the time. And he was just very sweet. He was like, well, I'm really glad to meet you. And I was able to shake his hand and to see him and to talk to him. And he was just a very sweet, kind of Southern old man. And that to me was, I think anybody else, like my first instinct was like, no, we're not, they didn't support our marriage or anything else. But I was like, no, like let's go meet him. Let's go meet him. And I wasn't like, I'm gonna prove a point. I have some harsh words. But it was, well, no, we seriously went out for ice cream. We just talked a little bit and told him we're expecting a little baby boy, and it was really good. And yeah, so something like that, like, yeah, it does, when we drive by, kind of when we're heading up to the mountains, sometimes we'll drive by, and that does kind of hurt my wife's heart, because, that's a whole relationship. There's a history there that's kind of tainted now because of us, because of our relationship. And, it's not really pleasurable, but we enjoy it. And other than that, man, like, I remember even my parents growing up, and this is no offense to them. They had moved to the States. They didn't have such great experiences with, they'd seen so many divorces happen in their community. They had seen so many divorces happen in the churches that they attended and in the communities that they were a part of, that they just thought, wow, Americans don't appreciate marriage. And they would tell us, not racially motivated, but they'd say, I don't marry white people. Don't marry white people, And this wasn't out of like, they were just kind of like, we don't understand their opinion on marriage. We don't understand. They don't respect marriage. We wouldn't recommend it. And we knew that. And even when I went to Tanzania, when we went back to Tanzania to be missionaries, moving back, I remember when I was moving back for college, and I was saying goodbye to some of the people in our church, and some of the ladies would say, hey, don't bring back a white woman, come back and get married here. And people would be like, hey, we'll find your wife here. And what did I do? Against all, I came back and I married Grace, but more than anything, I was able to tell my mom about Grace. I started dating Grace. My dad had passed away a few months later, tragically, but he had talked to Grace on the phone, and my mom had talked to Grace and had met Grace, and they no longer felt that way, they. And this wasn't like it wasn't like a fight, and I was screaming and dragging out match, but I just said, like, she loves the Lord, and her family loves the Lord, and I love her, and she loves me. And so, my mom was very supportive, and my family was too, I had some family members fly from Tanzania to be a part of the wedding. And when Grace, this was in 2019, Grace was pregnant, we flew to Tanzania for a couple of weeks, and everybody was so excited to meet Grace. Nobody said, harsh words at all, but they were very excited. They were very excited about seeing the baby too. We were going to go last year, but COVID prevented that. But yeah, so it's really cool. I'm 29 to live in this arc, or this kind of like a timeline to where it was weird, and people are gonna make, my parents would say stuff like, people make fun of your kids if they're mixed, and all these. My son is the most popular kid in church, in the kids ministry at church, by the way. As he is so freaking popular, they
Take
love
that,
him.
little Johnny.
Take that. But to go from this time where it was weird and kind of taboo, and people didn't really know what it was, to now, and there are some people who are still kind of against it, but then there are people who will, we'll be at restaurants or somewhere, and they'll just come up and they're like, what beautiful kids, we love your kids. So I'm extremely, extremely thankful. And I mean, yeah, I'm just extremely thankful, man. And I'm not even saying that like, I didn't set out to go, I want to marry a white, I want to marry a white person, but it was this kind of thing. Like when I met Grace, like we knew, and I don't think we ever talked about like, in premarital counseling, our counselor had brought up, there might be some challenges along the way, and we did kind of experience that already. But we also knew, we're like, hey, we know who we are, and we know what we're doing here, and we know we're not sinning, and we know that it's not against the. So yeah, that was just kind of where we stood, and we enjoy. And now more than ever, man, I love seeing mixed couples just kind of everywhere. They're mixed kids. Like, to me, that is so encouraging, because I remember a time when it was like, and so many African families who have moved here, they're like, oh, don't do that. And now all these families now who are, in healthy marriages and kids, and just the picture of, every marriage is a mixed marriage. Has anybody said that before? I'm not trying to like make like a soundbite here, but essentially, there is more, there are more elements to our marriage now, because there are two cultures involved. But, you know, if you're from up north and from down south and you get married, there are a lot of culture differences there too. But, you know, I'd say more so for us who married somebody from a different continent.
Man, when I go home to Ashley, I'm going to tell her, hey, did you know that we're a mixed couple?
Guys, I'm not responsible for anything that Debo says or does on the show routes. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, though, because you are mixing two very unique people,
Extremely unique.
totally different, you know, whether it's personalities or, I mean, for her and I was raised in the country. She was raised in the big city. You know, her family's like all New Yorkers. We're all, hey, y'all, over yonder. So bringing those, you know, it's like bringing the Kardashians and, you know, the Beverly Hillbillies together. Honestly, our relationship is kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies. You know, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Was there a big shift for you going, though, from marriage with no kids to into parenthood?
Man, we there was a shift, but we really, really loved it. Like, I know there are a lot of people who are indifferent about, you know, kids, and people are indifferent about marriage. You know, you see a lot of jokes that people make about, the old ball and chain and a bunch of other things, but the opportunity. And I'm going to say this because I worked for my wife and I when we got pregnant. I worked, my boss at the time, him and his wife, sadly had been trying for so long, and they couldn't have a kid, so they've adopted a child now, little Jonathan, and I'm so excited for them. So I remember when Grace and I remember my first thought was like, we're not gonna be flippant about this. This is a gift from the Lord, and I grew up in a great household with really great Christian, awesome parents who I really loved. And so getting to be a parent it has been like a huge blessing. And Grace really loves kids. Like, she wouldn't even let other people hold Ezra when we were at like family functions with her family. She would like hold on to him so long, and they'd be like, all right, can I have him back now? I need him back. And yeah, kids have really been a blessing. And I'll say, when we had Zoe, our second born, who's 2 months now, you know, it was a little sleep. There was it was a little sleep. You know, you kind of eat hovering over a trash can or on the kitchen counter or something really quick. Sometimes you're woken up in the middle of the night. But I remember I was telling Grace maybe a couple weeks in after our second was born, saying like, man, what a blessing to be woken up by your kids. You know, it's an inconvenient blessing, right? There are people who think like, oh, kids, man, there's kids are so expensive. Man, what an expensive blessing, right? Like, what an expensive, and my son calls me dad, you know? And my wife sent me a picture of Ezra yesterday. He was outside in the front yard playing in like a tank of water with some rubber duckies. He was shirtless and he was smiling. Such a cute little picture. And I was in the hotel room last night. I was watching a movie and she texted me and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like crying. Because I'm like, man, that's my son. Right? What a huge blessing. So yeah, that's just my. It is. There's a lot to figure out, and we are figuring it out. But it is a blessing to be able to figure out with a wife who's supportive and on the same side and the same team as me and doing the work. But yeah, it's a remarkable blessing, and I really, really enjoy it. And Zoe too, man.
Yeah, while you were saying that, I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying to me that He looked at us and saw our cost and thought, man, at what cost? But then He said, but what a blessing. And it is worth it. And the blessing outweighs the cost every day. And to be able to flip that mentality going into parenthood, because as excited as I am to someday be a dad, to be a father, and, you know, I've already kind of got the dad jokes down, and I've already, you know, I was a kindergarten teacher, and being able to interact with the kids, like, I loved that stuff. But there's also that fear of, am I going to be able? Am I going to have what it takes? And I think that just hearing you say, maybe you won't have what it takes on a couple nights.
Yeah.
Maybe you will struggle a little bit. And maybe you will have to sacrifice some of your time, some of your, joys in life, the things that you do. But it is all being filled with something much greater, much better. Because for me, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm not going to have as much time to go rock climbing if I have a child, but I'm literally trading in rock climbing, potentially for having someone look at me and say, Dada, and having a child. You're trading in what is going to be trash for what is going to be treasure. And I just feel like, that's kind of what God wants for us in our life. Like, that's our calling, is to, and I feel like that's been the theme of our conversation, of just like, stop focusing on these little things in life and what is, a very selfish thing, and look at, okay, when I'm selfless, He's actually going to reward me with more happiness, more joy, and be able to give me a life more fulfilled and more full.
It's no longer just my wife and I, or myself in there eating by myself. There's more to it, and it is a blessing to have the more mouths and the more hands scratching and gnawing and spilling and together.
Yes. Okay, so we have time for one final thing, and I have saved the best for last. So if anyone has listened this far that is not my mother, my fiance, or your wife, then you're about to have a special treat, I think. And this brings in everything from parenting to childhood to church culture, which your podcast, Church Stories.
Church Stories, yeah.
Shout out to that. If you love this story that you're about to hear, and I know I'm setting you up to like knock it out of the park, but if you love this story, definitely check out Church Stories. But you've got to share with our listeners your story of speaking in tongues.
Yes.
As a child.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here you go.
Oh, man. Okay, so when I was about 10 or 11, we used to go to these things called camp meetings. This was in South Carolina. Camp meetings are basically like every denomination, right, of a denomination, like a collaboration of churches, if they have like 100, 200, 1,000 churches in an area, in a state or whatever, in a county and a few counties, they'll all get together for a camp meeting where everybody just kind of comes out, and at the time I think it took place under a tent, but this was at a camp meeting a couple of years ago. No, this was back when I was 10. It's not a couple of years ago. I'm 29. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 29. So
you just have 12-year-olds working for you.
So therefore, henceforth, I feel 12. No, I'm kidding. They're all of age. But this was the Saturday night of a camp meeting. They were having like a youth service, right? They were having a youth service, and they said, hey, there's going to be pizza afterwards. So I'm like, oh, heck yeah, let's go. So my family and I would go, and then they were like, hey, we're doing it like speaking in tongues. We're doing like a speaking in tongues thing tonight. And so they're like, oh, everybody come forward or whatever. Come forward. We're going to lay hands on you. You're going to speak in tongues, right? So they're like putting hands on people and speak it. And people are catching it left and right. People are catching it. And I am not catching it, right? So everybody's catching it left and right and whatever. And people, as they catch it, they speak in tongues and then they go sit down. And then finally, I'm like the last kid standing, right? I'm like the last kid. And so the lady, they're like proclaiming. So now there's like 4 or 5 people, in my face, all yelling and screaming. And this is a Tuesday night if you grew up Pentecostal, BT dubs, right? And so finally I just go, and I just kind of repeated that over and over. I heard my dad pray in tongues like that, and I was like, how about this? And they're like, oh, he caught it. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And then they were like, oh, you can go sit down. But I messed this story up because, okay, so that happened at a small church where that happened, and there was pizza afterwards. I was there for the pizza. Then they were like, all right, before you get pizza, everybody needs to be filled with the Spirit. At a camp meeting a few years later, I actually did catch the Holy Spirit, and there was pizza afterwards.
So Chick-fil-A, if you're listening, that's your new
That's
way.
it.
You can get your sandwich after you've caught the spirit.
Was this the story?
Yeah.
Was that the story you wanted me to tell?
That was the story I wanted you to tell. And when I heard it, I was like, man, like the church brings you in and they're like, all right,
dude.
children, you get some pizza.
It was
but
so-
first you got to catch the spirit. Here we go, kids.
And one of the worst part was that my parents were all the parents were in the audience behind us. So they had just called like the students up. So we went up, and after my dad noticed that I was the last one standing, and then I prayed, and they're like, oh, and then I just turned around after that. I don't know, like a high five. Somebody was like, oh no, cool. Can I go sit down? Cool. Is there? I'm what's stopping everybody from pizza, right? I'm gonna go sit down, so we can all get in line. And my dad was like, that wasn't it, was it? And I was like, he's like, that wasn't, dude. And I was like, no, it wasn't.
And then you got to go get your piece of pizza.
Ooh, got my piece of pizza.
Yeah, just
A
like
pizza.
a piece of pizza. Can we say piece of pizza?
No. That's we will get sued.
Piece of pizza. Am I saying that right? Piece of pizza.
Yeah, it's a pizza.
piece of
Piece of pizza.
Piece of pizza. Okay. There's people that listening like, why are they talking about that? It's a callback to his content.
Yeah.
If you
It's
don't know it,
sketch.
that means you probably need to go listen into the archives of Shama. Dude, it has been fantastic to
Thanks for
have you on
having
the
me.
show today. Thanks for coming down all the way to Orlando to go to, theme parks in June, sweating your, I'm sure that, Anyways, thanks for coming down. Thanks for being here. Where can our listeners find and keep up with your content? How can they stay connected?
Well, thanks so much for having me, man. This has been a pleasure. I've never been on a podcast where I got to talk about being married. I've talked about it some on my podcast, but it's also, I do like a comedy podcast. So this has been like a real pleasure. And I'm excited to listening back to, not only just this episode, but the other episodes that you've talked about before. So people can find me. I'm on Instagram, Shama, SHAMA, the number 4 Reels, REALZ. That's the same handle on TikTok and Twitter. And then on YouTube, it's After School Program. We also have a podcast called Church Stories Podcast. Me and my friend Petey, a.k.a. Paul David. We're 100+ episodes deep. And we've just had pastors, artists, ministers, laymen, my wife, they're PD and Chase's girlfriend. Chase is also one of the co-hosts, and we've just talked about different stories, people sending emails, and so that's been a great time. And yeah, that's where you can find me, man.
Awesome. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. Go be woke.
Hey, go be young, married.
Go be young, married, and awesome.
Young, married, and awesome. Young, married, and cool. Young, married, and hipster.
Oh.
Hey, y'all, we hope you loved this conversation. Here at Young Married Christian, we are on a mission to see a gospel-centered home made available for every single child in the foster care system. There are 400,000 kids in the foster care system, and there are 400,000 churches in America. Wow, that is crazy. This is absolutely a solvable problem, and we want to be a part of it. If you want to join us in that mission, text the word freedom to 833-370-1610.
833-370-1610. 833-370-1610.
I just did it.
And another thing you can do that is really helpful is to smash the like button on this video.
Smash it like Satan's face. Crush it like it's Lucifer's head.
It really helps us a ton, so smash that like button, subscribe to this channel,
That's it.
smash the like button on this video.